the daily life of a secret agent in American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Ending. Bang bang, 2 grenades were fired from Hank's launcher, breaking the tracks of the 2 tanks that were preparing to make a detour, forcing them to stop in place. The tank immediately fired in anger in the direction of the firing, but unfortunately, the place Hank chose was an absolutely safe earth slope. He fired without hesitation and immediately rolled under the earth slope. The 2 shells only raised a large piece of mud on the earth slope, and there was no other result. Hank's accurate shooting made the tank crew so scared that they didn't dare to get off the cart to repair the tank tracks. They were all experienced drivers and must know that the previous shelling was useless. The ghost-like gunmen must still be ambushing somewhere. As long as they dare to show their heads from the tank, they will immediately suffer a catastrophe. The safest way is to continue hiding in the tank and wait until these plague gods leave before going out to repair the tank. Of course, the idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel. After Ron escaped to the rooftop, he not only did not leave quickly, but he took a running start on the rooftop and jumped from one building to the rooftop of another building 20 meters away. This was far beyond the reach of human power. If it were not for the exoskeleton, Ron would never have been able to do this, but now, he did it. The 2 tanks blocking the 2 buildings saw that the situation was not good and immediately reminded their companions, but what was the use of reminding them? Ron jumped down from the rooftop and quickly stuffed 2 high explosives into the gun barrels of the tanks. This was originally one of his alternative plans for bombing submarines, but he didn't expect that it would be just right to use it against tanks now. Boom! With 2 loud noises, the gun barrels of the 2 tanks were blown into twisted metal objects, completely threatening Ron. Ron, we have already met Ramsey and his team, but we only have 3 cars now, and they have 8 and are chasing us. Do you have any better way to help us get rid of them? Hobbs's cry for help came from the communicator, accompanied by the dense gunfire that made his scalp numb. Ron really didn't know how they could continue to drive under such firepower. Ron called up the GPS map and took a look. Their current position just crossed the line of fire that Ron had drawn at the beginning. Hank, we can start now. Start the evacuation procedure, Ron shouted. Hank's heart trembled. Boss, are you sure? You are still in there? Of course I am sure. Don't worry about me. Hurry up. If you move slower, you can collect their bodies, Ron shouted, and took a look at the battery life. There was a little more than 3 minutes of driving time left. If the performance parameters given by Howard were not inflated, this distance would definitely be possible. At that moment, Ron no longer cared about the 2 tanks that had circled out from behind. He pushed his feet hard on the ground, and the Metro was ejected from the spot on the posture of a sprinter. In less than 5 seconds, the speed immediately reached nearly 90 kilometers per hour. After jumping over the 2-meter-high wall, the Hobbs convoy was being chased by the pursuers. However, Ron did not think of helping, but continued to run wildly. Behind him, the dock began to be covered by a dark cloud. If someone took a telescope to take a closer look, they would find that it was not a dark cloud at all, but a group of drones composed of nearly 100 drones. Under the control of the program, they quickly gathered at the dock from all directions. Each drone had an exaggerated white phosphorus incendiary bomb hanging on it. Ron asked Anonymous to arrange for several agents to transport it in advance by truck. Now is the time to put them to good use. Boom! Another shell exploded at Ron's feet, but it didn't affect his running speed. Come on, Hank, let's help these sons of bitches to warm up. The drones flying over the dock received the order and dropped incendiary bombs one by one. The blazing sea of fire instantly engulfed the dock behind Ron, and because of the program, the bombing range of the drones continued to spread to Ron. According to the program, they will stop at a point in the middle of the river, and Ron is less than 20 meters away from that place. 1 step, 2 steps. The long legs of the mecha take each step, which is about twice that of an ordinary person. The flames engulf the place behind him bit by bit, and even the tank that just fired at him can't be surprised. Ron seemed to have heard the smell of barbecue emitted by the crew members in the tank due to the high temperature. Of course, he couldn't smell it, everything was just from imagination, but Ron clearly understood that the burning feeling behind him was definitely not imagined. It was really a bit hot, but still within the tolerable range. Ron pushed the ice hard with his last step, trying to throw the whole mecha forward, but he never thought that the power of the mecha would be exhausted in advance because of running at full speed. Seeing that the mecha was about to be engulfed by the sea of fire, Ron simply opened the rear engine cover at the moment before the mecha was about to fall, jumped out of the mecha, and fell heavily to the ground. Fortunately, it just crossed the line. But this does not mean that Ron is safe. The explosion range of the incendiary bomb has indeed been exceeded, but this range is calculated according to the bearing capacity of the mecha, because the shell of the mecha can absorb a large part of the heat. But now, he can only use his flesh and blood to resist. It's over. This time I will be burned to level 7 disability at least. It's a pity for my handsome face, Ron cursed while lying on the ground, protecting his head with both hands, intending to use his back to meet the rolling heat wave. Boom boom, the last wave of incendiary bombs exploded behind Ron, but the imagined heat wave did not come. Except that the surroundings became a little hotter, there was no other change. Ron turned his head curiously, and saw behind him, led by Toretto's car, Hobbs, Letty, Tiggy, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Roman, Arthur, a total of 7 cars, formed a semicircle behind him, blocking the heat out. What are you thinking? You are a member of our big family. I never allow anyone to hurt my family. Toretto stretched out his hand to Ron, and Ron pulled his hand and stood up. I agree with you, family is really an intimate name. Hey, Hobbs interrupted with a sour look, if Ron is your family, then what am I? In Berlin, you personally knocked over my car, so I was caught by them. You are a cop. Arthur, who is always taciturn, suddenly spoke up, saying something shocking. Everyone was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Ron laughed and patted him on the shoulder. Arthur, as your boss, I have to remind you that even though what we do is very different, we are definitely part of the cops. You have to learn to adapt to your identity. Chapter 302, Toretto's Family Gathering. In Los Angeles, in the small house next to Toretto's auto repair shop, Ron took his men to participate in the party of these gangsters for the first time. Toretto's party has always been a relatively free American barbecue, but after Ron and Guan Yuming, a Chinese chef, joined, the style began to become strange. The traditional roast beef was retained, but it was the Cooper family's special roast beef that Ron marinated in the kitchen a little in advance and roasted all night. The original grilled wings were replaced by Guan Yuming's grilled lamb skewers, as well as lamb kidneys and lamb whips, on the grounds that there were too many hormones. Ron didn't know if it was as delicious as the original, but he was sure that everyone would be busier than usual in exercising before going to bed tonight. Oh my god, what is this? Didn't we agree to have a barbecue? Why do I see some green grass? Are you sure this isn't for goats? I swear, I won't eat a bite. Roman was shocked when he saw the green grass on the grill. He didn't like vegetables the most, no matter what form they were in. Most people at the scene thought the same. Frank Moses had even made up his mind not to touch him at all during dinner. I heard from Joe Mason that you have a very young girlfriend, right? Guan Yuming came behind Frank unconsciously. Yes, her name is Sarah, and she's a very beautiful woman. Then I suggest you eat more of this vegetable, because it can repair certain functions that begin to decline with age. Since Frank surrendered to Ron, he had met Guan Yuming many times at the Senior Citizen Club, so he naturally knew how rosy Guan Yuming's wife looked and how harmonious she looked. So, maybe eating some vegetables wouldn't be so bad? Frank's hand reached out to the roasted leeks prepared by Guan Yuming. Roman swallowed hard and quietly reached out his hand as well. But when he was halfway there, he was stopped in mid-air by a big hand. Roman turned around and saw Ron's half-smiley face. Didn't you just say that these green grasses are for goats? Ah. Did I say that? Roman started to play dumb. I don't know if it was because of his dark skin or because he was too thick-skinned, but he didn't even blush. You must have heard it wrong, or someone else said that and you thought it was me. I have always liked eating green vegetables. Roman was afraid that Ron would stop him, so he quickly grabbed a few skewers of grilled vegetables on the grill with his other hand, and stuffed them into his mouth without caring about the heat. It smells so good, okay, as long as you like it. I was going to tell you that if you really don't like eating vegetables, lamb kidneys have the same effect. They are made from sheep kidneys. If you don't mind the special fishy smell, it is a rare delicacy for meat eaters. Why didn't you say it earlier? I thought your kidneys were good enough and didn't need to be supplemented. Ron spread his hands. Roman was about to refute and prove his unlimited waist strength, but before he could open his mouth, Toretto brought him to the table from behind. You ate the first bite of food, so today you will say the prayer. Everyone come around, let's pray together, and get ready to eat. In the yard, people gathered at the dining table from all corners. The table, which was originally large enough for everyone to eat together and had remaining seats, was actually full. The extra people simply stood by. And everyone held hands and stood in a circle around the table. Roman could only make up a story. Thank God for the V8 engine and carbon fiber body that we have been blessed with. We will definitely use them to modify a better car and strive to see you soon. What kind of a damn prayer is this? O'Connor was dissatisfied with Roman's prayer. Eat yours. Roman took a skewer of lamb and stuffed it into O'Connor's mouth, and took a skewer of lamb kidneys to take a big bite in revenge. In an instant, his mouth was full of fishy smell. Ugh! This is worse than eating leeks. Roman looked up and looked at Ron with grievance, but saw him proudly making a V sign to him, and immediately realized that he was fooled. Well, actually Ron didn't mean to fool him at all, he just wanted to see if he could stand the taste. After all, let alone the West, even in China, the birthplace of this kind of food, there are many people who can't accept this heavy taste. Facts have proved that Roman really can't accept it. But just when Ron thought Roman would spit out the meat in his mouth and eat something more normal, Roman actually took a big gulp of beer, forced the meat down, and then took another big bite like taking medicine, also with beer. Ron was stunned. How much is he lacking in that aspect to make up for it like this? Ron, Toretto waved his hand in front of Ron. Are you listening? What's going on? Ron came back to his senses. Will Dick bring my son back? Toretto asked with some expectation. Of course, I've told you before that Deckard Shaw is not a bastard who only knows how to kill people, as you think he is. But Owen is. He was completely dragged into this situation by his unlucky brother. Ron took a sip of beer to replenish his water and continued, in fact, he has accepted my job offer on the condition that he also brings his brother with him. I don't mind that. As long as that bastard Owen doesn't cause any more trouble, I'm happy to accept a villain as my thug, but I think you're playing with fire. Hobbs also came over with a bottle of beer, clinked his beer with the two of them, took a sip and joined the conversation. Both brothers came from the most mysterious special forces in the UK. The restless blood of that force flows in their veins. If you can't keep a close eye on them, you will definitely cause more trouble. How about giving one to me? Hobbs's first half was fine, but when he got to the last sentence, his true intention was exposed. The atmosphere of "I'm doing this for your own good" that he created at the beginning disappeared instantly. That's my business. Ron put the bottle into the recycling box unhappily and opened himself another bottle of beer. Instead of caring about my business, you might as well care about the whereabouts of Sefer. There was no trace of Sefer on the plane attacked by the Zio brothers, nor was there her on the other two ghost flights shot down by anti-aircraft missiles, so where did this woman go? Is it really like Owen said, she is a ghost, and you only have the chance to see her when she wants to find you? I don't know. Hobbs was overwhelmed when he mentioned this. The Coast Guard has tested the bodies in the wreckage of the plane, and the DNA test showed that there was not a single female. What's even more weird is that the bodies that were salvaged, whether it is DNA or fingerprints, have no information in the FBI database, as if they appeared out of thin air. It is impossible for a person to leave no traces from birth to death. If you really can't find anything, then I think you can really check the internal trader to see who is cooperating with Sefer and concealing the identities of her men, Ron commented incisively. Hobbs nodded in conviction, but he was a little unsure in his heart. There were more and more new situations in the world, and he had only watched a few movies and TV series. Many situations had already happened beyond his expectations, but he had no clues at all. Ron planned to keep a low profile for a while recently. If he couldn't afford to offend me, he could always hide from me, right? Don't mistake Ron's heroic performance in various crises as the kind of thug-type agent who only knew how to fight. In fact, Ron was a more cowardly type. No matter when, he would always prioritize saving his life. All the seemingly heroic performances had a fundamental reason, that is, he had something to rely on, so he dared to be so unscrupulous. Well, in this operation in Russia, his biggest trump card had not been revealed, that is, Peggy's hacker ability. Although Peggy didn't dare to guarantee that she was definitely better than Sefer, at least she could interfere with Sefer from dropping the nuclear bomb on Ron's head. Even at the moment when he was almost engulfed by the incendiary bomb, Ron was not afraid. It's just a burn. So what if the whole body is burned beyond recognition? Ron has a friend who looks almost exactly like Forrest Gump and is the warden of a prison. There is a prisoner named John Coffey in prison. No matter how badly Ron is injured, as long as he is touched by him for a while, he will be completely healed. But this matter is too magical. No one knows about it except Ron and his friend, the warden. In this way, Ron, Toretto and Hobbs chatted with each other. Toretto stared at the intersection absent-mindedly. Finally, the person he was waiting for appeared. Deckard Portrick brought a cradle like a takeaway and handed it to Toretto. Here, our agreement is fulfilled. Thank you, Zio. If it weren't for you, I really don't know what I would do. Toretto took the child gratefully and held him carefully as if he were the most precious treasure in the world. This was the first time he held his son in his arms. He looked at him for a long time before handing him over to Letty. Letty, look, this is our son. What are you going to name him? Ron came over and asked while teasing the child with his fingers. I'm going to name him Deckard, in memory of Deckard Shaw who rescued him. What do you think? Toretto looked around to ask for everyone's opinions. Deckard? It's better to call him Jason Statham, Ron muttered in a low voice. What did you say? Toretto looked at Ron. No, it's nothing. I said Deckard is a good name. Ron quickly covered up, and silently apologized to little Deckard in his heart. Poor child, blame your father if you want to blame someone. With this name given to you, you probably won't have hair in this life. After naming, Toretto held the child and chatted with Deckard Shaw, and Hobbs came up again, but this time he didn't want anyone. Ron, just now, I suddenly had a bold idea. Instead of our FBI working hard on internal investigations and arranging high-level police forces to guard against Sapphire, why don't we use science to establish an early warning system like Sapphire? I guess you don't mean science, but procedures. Ron was helpless with this simple-minded guy, but his idea was still interesting. Ron frowned, but you have to understand that criminal behavior is not a natural phenomenon. It is full of randomness and uncertainty. What do you want to do? I think we can take out all the criminal files of our FBI over the years, build an archive, and then use it as a model to identify possible crimes. When this program issues a warning to us, we will immediately send people to the place where the crime is about to happen and wait. In this way, we don't have to waste so many police forces on boring patrols. What do you think? Ron, is it feasible? Hobbs stared at Ron nervously. Ron thought for a while before answering. Your idea reminds me of a very annoying British man. He once said, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is just doing the same old thing over and over again. If you build a model to analyze and warn of crimes, it may certainly be effective, but I need to remind you that algorithms of this level are by no means something that ordinary people can handle. I don't think the higher-ups will approve the funding for you, FXXK. Hobbs's expectant smile suddenly collapsed. I thought I could just go to Caltech and find some computer talents to do it. It takes a genius, Hobbs. Do you understand what a genius is? Ron shook his head, trying to shake off Hobbs' unrealistic idea, because this idea also had a fatal attraction to him. Man, it's a good thing that we don't have this thing. Think about it, if you really find someone to make a machine like this, how terrifying it would be. It will monitor everyone in the world, and even the smallest thing will be exposed. Even if you get drunk and urinate on the side of the road, people will know about it. Seriously, have you ever thought about living that kind of life? Of course not. But facing the possible revenge of Sapphire, I have to make some preparations, don't I? I'm very worried about my daughter. She's only 11 years old. If Sapphire uses her to threaten me one day, maybe I will make the same choice as Toretto. Ron certainly understood Hobbs's concerns. Not everyone is like him, with enough people around to protect them. You can rest assured about that. As soon as Hobbs finished speaking, he saw the figure of Anonymous outside the yard. From today on, your daughter will be protected by a senior agent 24 hours a day. I am very interested in the idea you just mentioned. With this machine, we can save a lot of money. Are you willing to help me make this thing? Anonymous raised his eyebrows proudly at Ron. What we lack the least in CIA is talent and funds. This thing is not a difficult task for us, no shortage of money. Wait for me, I will go to the CIA headquarters to check taxes another day. Chapter 303, Sheldon is excluded. I told you, Ron, this kind of algorithm is definitely not something that can be done by one or two programmers. It takes very talented programmers to create a system that can monitor everyone to predict crime. It is definitely not something that you or your big friend whose brain is filled with muscles can do. 2 weeks had passed since the party at the Dorito family. Ron had been thinking about the crime warning system proposed by Hobbs, and finally couldn't help but call Peggy for consultation. Of course I know it's difficult. Don't ignore my Harvard degree. At least I know a little bit about programming, Ron retorted dissatisfiedly. Besides, this is just the big guy's idea, not mine. However, I heard that someone is already doing research and development in this area, but this algorithm must be based on a national-level information system, so it is very difficult. If you need it, I can give you the person's contact information. What do I want him to do? Ron smiled. These are just Hobbs's ideas. What does it have to do with me? On the contrary, if one day his machine monitors me, I will find a way to break it. Yes, the concept of this machine was unrealistic from the beginning. Everyone has an unpleasant side. No one wants to live under surveillance every moment, even if he never intends to do anything bad, etc. Peggy heard a harsh noise from Ron's phone. What's that sound on your end? It's so unpleasant. It's Sheldon. Ron apologized into the phone, then turned around and yelled at Sheldon helplessly. Sheldon, if you don't stop, I will throw you and your weird instrument off the building. Hey. It's not a weird instrument, it's a theremin, the world's first electronic musical instrument. Here's an interesting little fact. The theremin was invented in 1919 by Professor Lev Theremin, a physicist from the former Soviet Union. Einstein was one of the audience when it was first publicly performed. Ron could only cover the microphone with his hand. Dear Sheldon, believe me, no one except you will find this kind of thing interesting. How is that possible? Amy also found it interesting when I told her this little story. Sorry, Peggy, it seems I have to deal with my troublesome brother first. I'll call you tomorrow. Bye. Ron hung up the phone and turned to Sheldon, startled by his fierce eyes. Ron, Mom told you not to hit me. Besides, Amy really thinks the facts I told you are very interesting. If you don't believe me, you can ask her. Ron took several deep breaths, recalling his gentle and kind mother and his funny and lovely grandmother, and finally stopped thinking about killing Sheldon. Okay, I was wrong. Let me correct you. No one in this world will find this interesting except you and Amy, two freaks. Sheldon, today is Friday. Why don't you go play with your friends? What are you doing here all the time? It all started at noon today, Sheldon asked, and immediately threw away his strange musical instrument and sat next to Ron, making him wonder if he had just made a wrong decision. The noise of the strange musical instrument was gone, but the talkative version of Sheldon came online. Ron didn't know whether to be happy or sad for a moment. At lunch today, Leonard came up with a good idea to make money. He suggested that we work together to create an app that can automatically recognize handwritten formulas and then quickly calculate them. In this way, as long as we take a picture of the formula with a smartphone, all the problems that follow will be solved. It sounds like a very smart idea, but are you sure this thing can make money? How many people will be the audience for this kind of thing? Ron expressed doubts. There are about 30 professors in our university who can be used, but this is not important. The important thing is that they collectively nominated Leonard to be the project leader. Can you understand it? Ron? It's Leonard, Sheldon shouted in an unbelievable tone. It's Leonard. A mediocre person with no leadership ability. To be honest, even if you don't want to believe it, I can understand their choice, Ron said empathetically, but his answer was met with Sheldon's eye roll. Are you angry with them because of this? Of course not. How could I be such a naive person? Sheldon said dissatisfiedly. I even tried to lead them and get them on the right track. I made all the interfaces and algorithms. Guess what? They fired you. Yes, Sheldon said indignantly. Can you imagine? They fired the person who has contributed the most to this project so far. In any company, such a person will definitely have his name engraved on a gold-plated plate and hung in the most conspicuous place in the company, maybe, but, Sheldon, this is just an interest group organized by you spontaneously, not a multinational company. Your behavior will make others feel uninvolved, and never put yourself above others, as if as long as you are the best, the collective power is the strongest. Just like your last physics knowledge competition, you pulled the cleaners to form a team, but they were defeated by Leonard and his team. Have you ever thought about why? But, I remember you were like this in the army. Forrest Gump said that you always let them hide in the trenches, and then you rushed up and killed one or several teams of enemies, and then took them back with you, Sheldon said strangely. Ron, who was exposed, was speechless for a moment. This is different. Can the work of soldiers be the same as the work of physicists? I do this because I alone can deal with those terrorists who can only shoot into the sky and can't even shoot down a bird. In short, this is different, Ron argued. Thinking about it carefully, Sheldon's words seem to make some sense. This seems to be a common problem of the Cooper family. From George Sr. to George Jr., to Ron, and then to Sheldon, the men in the Cooper family never seem to be the type to listen to advice. In this regard, George Sr. may be better, but that is also because Mary has enough aura. But on the football field, George Sr. is a famous tyrant godfather. His deputies can only make suggestions, but whether the suggestions can be adopted, only God knows. I see, it's not my fault that I'm stubborn and self-willed. It's all because of old George's genes. Yes, that's it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 Run in Everyday Life. Old George, who was far away in Texas, sneezed as if he had sensed something, and rubbed his arms. The weather seems to be a bit cold recently. I should wear more clothes at night next time. You won't feel cold as long as you don't sit outside on the corridor drinking. Mary threw a piece of clothes to old George, and old George put it on obediently. George, what do you think of Ron and Sheldon recently? They are not like little George and Missy in California. They are right next to us and we can take care of them at any time. Mary, you just called Sheldon yesterday. Old George rolled his eyes, and his movements were exactly the same as Ron's. If you miss them, you can go to Los Angeles anytime to see them. The air tickets are discounted now and are not expensive. Haha, after I leave, it will be convenient for you to flirt with a waitress in the restaurant. Mary glanced at old George, who was so scared that he dared not breathe and cried out that he was wronged. I've said it all, there's really nothing between me and that waitress. Really? Mary sneered. George, I'm increasingly suspicious that Ron's romantic nature is something you learned from him. Look at him, he has 5 ambiguous women now. Weren't you the same when you were young? 5? Old George shouted in surprise. How is this possible? I only had 1 girlfriend before I fell in love with you, but Ron has had 5. There's not enough time for him. This must be a rumor. Old George didn't know whether he was envious or jealous. His tone was sour that Mary could smell it across the table, but she didn't dwell on the problem of old George's tone. She would write it down first and talk about it later. At most, she could deduct it from his wine money. Because now, Mary has found a new pleasure, which is to use Ron to hit old George. This is what Missy said. Oh, Missy said that? That should be true. What else did she say? Tell me. Old George sighed, not knowing whether he was feeling emotional or regretful that he was not as happy as Ron in his youth, but he recovered immediately and asked gossipingly. First of all, the first one is the waitress in the restaurant, in Los Angeles. Ron, who is becoming the center of conversation for the old couple, is not as cool as they imagined. He is still worried about Sheldon. Penny and her new boyfriend Zach are out having fun tonight, and Ron probably won't be back all night. Although Zach looks stupid, he has good physical strength and should not let her go home too early. This behavior not only makes Leonard cheat on her, but also makes Ron miserable, because that means that no one will come to control Sheldon, and he will keep making trouble here. Ron has to think of a way. Sheldon, you know you have to reconcile with Leonard, otherwise, you will have to wear your bus pants to work on Monday. Tell me, is this what you want? Bus pants? Sheldon specially prepared a pair of pants to deal with the complicated sanitary environment in the bus, which he wore outside his original pants. Although it sounds silly and looks even sillier, he did it. Sheldon stared with innocent eyes and asked, Ron, can you take me to work on Monday? Then will you shut up the whole way? Oh, you know it's impossible. I am always happy to share my knowledge with ordinary people with intellectual disabilities. Sheldon waved his hand and said. Then my answer is also impossible. Ron shook his head. Okay, it's almost time. I still need to rest. Sheldon, you can go back to your own apartment. No, they kicked me out, and they must pay the price for it. Sheldon hugged Kim to his lap again. Without me, they must be leaderless now. Do you know what I plan to do? I'm going to sit here all day and let them bother me. Ron felt a headache. If he left Sheldon in the room, who knew if he would become a corpse tomorrow morning? Okay, that's a bit exaggerated, but with Sheldon's usual mischievous character, it would be hard for Ron not to beat him up. Ron could only change to a gentle tone. Sheldon, they must be waiting for you to come back and take charge of the situation. You must give them a way out. How? An apology? Of course. No, no, no. Sheldon said 3 no's in a row. My dear mother, Miss Mary, never taught me to lie. Lie? Who told you to lie? Sheldon was unmoved, so Ron could only change his words. Haven't you always wanted to learn how to ridicule others? That's right. Woo-woo. Sheldon put down his hands that were gesturing on the piano to show his interest. Ron just wanted to thank God in his heart that the weird thing finally stopped making noise. Ron continued to persuade, so, you just need to go over and apologize to Leonard, with sarcasm in your tone, and then he will think that I am really apologizing and trying to be nice to him. In fact, only the 2 of us know that it is a naked ridicule. Sheldon continued to answer the second half of the sentence excitedly. After speaking, he did not forget to raise his eyebrows at Ron proudly. Yes, that's right, that's what I meant. Ron was delighted and quickly struck while the iron was hot. Okay, let's go. We'll go over now. By the way, thank you for taking me in all night, Ron. Thank you, you're welcome. Ron never thought that Sheldon would have such a reasonable side, and his heart couldn't help but warm, but he still walked and said calmly, who made me born a few years earlier than you, so I am your brother. However, Sheldon's next sentence immediately brought him back to the bottom and made him know what it means to be hard to change one's nature. Oh my God, my sarcasm skills are getting stronger and stronger. Ron swore that it was the biggest miracle in the world that Sheldon had not been shot by him until now. If he was not afraid of making Mary and Grandma sad, he would have cut Sheldon into 108 pieces and fed him to the dog. In the next apartment, for Ron's sake, Leonard and the others finally let Sheldon in and agreed to accept him again, but when Leonard was about to tell Sheldon about the progress, Sheldon interrupted. Before we start, please allow me to express my deep apologies for my previous performance. In addition, I respect and admire your leadership skills. Sheldon winked at Ron, as if asking if this was what it was like to be in trouble. Ron could only smile bitterly and nodded. As long as Sheldon didn't go back to his apartment to bother him, it would be fine. Sacrificing a few Atticus would at most be considered a tribute. But this also reminded Ron that it was time for him to buy himself a house. Chapter 305 Solving Lee Hand's Trouble. A house, preferably near Pasadena. With Ron's wealth, he can completely ignore the price and only look at the comfort. It is very simple to solve this problem. Phil Dunphy, the husband of Ron's cousin Claire, is one of the best real estate salesmen in Los Angeles. Just let him do this. Now Ron has a more important thing, which is to help poor little Ahan. Ahan's mother will come to the United States the day after tomorrow, and Ron has not yet fulfilled his promise to hire Suzu, his fake girlfriend, to go to the pole dancing club for him to fool his mother. He plans to go now. When Ron mentioned in the laboratory that he wanted to go to such a special occasion, Howard and Rajesh immediately protected Ron on the left and right like guardians. How can you go to such a place without calling your brothers to go with you? Ron, given our friendship, I am willing to go anywhere with you. The right guardian. Rajesh was so happy that his mouth was almost grinning to his ears. Come on, how do I look like someone who goes there for fun? I just go there to find someone. Ron reluctantly pulled down Rajesh's hand that was on his shoulder. I know. Howard always says that every time he goes to that kind of place, right Howard? Rajesh raised his eyebrows at Ron in a coquettish way. Ron didn't know that this seemingly honest Indian had such a coquettish side. Every time? Howard, do you go there often? This discovery surprised Ron a little. Of course, Rajesh took the initiative to answer for Howard without waiting for him to speak. In the club on Fifth Avenue, there is also a steel pipe named after Howard. Howard spread his hands and made a cow beeping sound. Ron rolled his eyes. What is there to be proud of? Just wait, when you get married, Rajesh, this big mouth will definitely help you to tell it all. Now I understand why you can't save money even though you live with your mother. It turns out that you spend all your money on that kind of thing. Wouldn't it be better to make some investments with this money? Come on, Ron, investment is risky. The stock market is full of Wall Street financial tycoons. If you make a mistake, you may lose all your money. It's better to spend money and enjoy yourself. Howard walked to the door of the club and joked with a security guard skillfully. I don't think the financial tycoons on Wall Street would value your small wallet. Perhaps it was due to the traditional habits of the Chinese people. Even though Ron is now wealthy, he rarely spends lavishly. Except for spending money on updating weapons and equipment, he rarely spends money. How about this? From now on, half of your salary for working for my exoskeleton will be paid in US dollars, and the other half will be paid in Bitcoin. Bitcoin. Isn't that what we mined with computers at Sheldon's house a few days ago? Do we need to spend money on this thing? Rajesh objected with a shrewdness, short-sightedness, that Indians have always had. Ron, you don't want to cut our salaries, do you? We are good friends, okay? I'm just talking casually. If you don't want to, forget it, Ron said indifferently, and at the same time, he added in his heart, I hope you won't regret it in the future. The girl that Lee Han used to fool his mother was named Sapphire, one of the few girls that Howard had never clicked on. For some reason, although Howard was only 1.65 meters tall, he always liked to see girls over 1.7 meters tall. Rajesh, take out $20 from Arhan's wallet. It will be used as a small fee later. Before Ron came, he went to Arhan's restaurant. Arhan generously handed his wallet to Ron. Mr. Lee will pay for all the expenses today. Do you want to order one for yourself? No, I just asked. Pink Candy is not here today. In addition, I don't recommend you to sit on the sofa here, Howard reminded Ron when he saw him about to sit on the sofa. Why? Ron asked, puzzled. Coming to his home court, Howard suddenly became extremely confident. He walked to the steel pipe in the room and stepped on it. The headlights in the room went out. Under the black light, strange linear reflections appeared on the walls of the room, which looked like a clumsy children's painting. I don't think you want to sit on someone else's XX, right? Howard pointed to a reflective line on the wall. I put this up last time. It looks like they haven't cleaned this room for 2 weeks. Ron covered his face. I suggest that you try some other ways of rest that are more conducive to your physical and mental health next time. No need. The girls here are very good, you know? If you meet the same girl twice, she will give you a free cocktail the next time. The bartenders here are great. Howard patted the sofa in vain a few times and pushed Rajesh aside. You can sit here. There are no traces here. No, I'd better stand. Ron stood by at a loss. He didn't want to touch anything here. Although Ron's private life was also chaotic after being corrupted by American imperialism, he always exchanged ideas with like-minded people, and he never came to such a place that costs money. The reason is simple, it's dirty and he's afraid of getting sick. Are you ready to have your eyes opened, brothers? Just as the sleazy Otaku duo sat down, an Asian man in scantily clad clothes walked in, boldly posing in a way that best showed off his body. We're ready X2. If it wasn't for this special occasion, Ron would have thought they were the mother's darlings getting ready for dinner. Hey! Ron hurriedly stopped them because he realized the atmosphere was heading in a strange direction. If he didn't stop it, the story would soon go in the direction of 404. Do you remember why we are here? If you want to have fun, please wait until we finish our business and I leave before talking to you, okay? After stopping the lecherous duo who were about to make a move, Ron turned to the dancing artist. Hello, nice to meet you. Although it's a bit presumptuous to say this since we just met, can you do me a favor? Of course, all the men who come here will ask me for help, and I am happy to help, especially people like you. I can even help you for free. The dancing artist with a stage name Sapphire's eyes lit up, and he stuck close to him since he saw Ron's appearance. Ron took a step back calmly and made way. I think you may have misunderstood something. The help I want is not this, but another kind. Chapter 306 Leonard is forced to work. In the end, Ron still couldn't explain to Sapphire what kind of help he needed, and it was Howard who came to solve the problem. Ron was glad that he brought Howard with him, otherwise he could only use the simplest and crudest method, that is, knocking the dancing artist unconscious and throwing him to Lee Han to let him explain himself. Fortunately, this matter was finally resolved, and Ron was able to return to his calm daily life. He even had time to stay with the 4 people in the Caltech laboratory after experiencing the new version of the mecha. To be fair, the food in the Caltech cafeteria is still good, but today's lunch is destined to be unpleasant. 12 o'clock direction, President Hibbert. Leonard's sharp eyes found that the president, who was supposed to eat in the special restaurant, appeared in the ordinary restaurant. Why did the university president come to inspect the cafeteria? Ron asked with some confusion. Maybe he is imitating Henry V. and Shakespeare's works, going incognito to find out how his subjects view him, Sheldon said in a mocking tone. Of course, if he had read any of the 1,300 emails I sent him about school management, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. I believe that if you had read any of them, He would not have come here empty-handed in a suit like he is now, but would have at least brought a submachine gun. Ron certainly knew how much Sheldon's mouth was hated. To be fair, if killing was not illegal, he would have been killed countless times. It may also be because he heard that today is Tuesday, and the cafeteria has fried potato sticks available. Rajesh's remarks caused the other people to glare at him. He could only lower his head and mutter to himself, "Anyway, that's why I came. Hey, my most respected geniuses." The principal looked around the cafeteria and immediately found Sheldon and his group sitting in the corner. He walked over directly. Obviously, he came for them, but Ron's arrival surprised him a little, but he adjusted himself quickly. "And my dearest sponsor, Mr. Ron, your presence makes our place glorious. You shouldn't sit here to eat. If you had told me earlier, I would have arranged a seat in the banquet hall so that we could have a good chat." In an instant, the expression on Principal Hibbert's face changed from a fake smile when he saw Sheldon to a true expression of his feelings for Ron. With such a skill of changing his face, even if he didn't become a principal, he would have a good future as an actor. This is normal. Anyone who becomes a principal will be full of enthusiasm when facing a large donor worth tens of millions. That's not necessary. I'm more used to being with my brother, so that we can talk about work while eating, so that they can better understand my needs. Okay, then we'll have a chance to eat together again in the future. After dealing with Ron, Principal Hibbert changed back to a kind smile and put his hands on the shoulders of Sheldon and Leonard, who were sitting side by side. "How is your day? My lovely little geniuses, it depends on how long you plan to keep your hands on my shoulders," Sheldon said unhappily. "Sorry, Dr. Cooper, I forgot you have a fear of close contact." Principal Hibbert had a cross on his head, but for Ron's sake, he immediately hid it. "I'm not afraid of close contact, I'm just afraid of germs. If you are willing to wear a pair of sterilized latex gloves, I'd even like you to examine my rectum." "Okay," Hibbert smiled at Ron, pretending to be relaxed, but the smile was a little forced. To be honest, Ron began to feel sorry for the poor principal. There will be a small banquet at the school this Saturday night. Thank you to the generous people who have donated to the school recently. We welcome you to come, Mr. Ron. "No problem, I have time." Ron had nothing else to do, so he agreed casually. "Of course, you are also welcome, my little geniuses. There will be good wine, delicious food, and maybe a few sweet girls. Do you want to come?" "Of course." "It sounds really great, Howard." Rajesh and Leonard agreed immediately. "Wait," Sheldon hurriedly stopped him. "Just because a weird uncle gave you candy, you are going to jump into the trafficker's broken car right away? Didn't you hear what he said just now? This is a dinner to thank donors. He wants us to please those mediocre people who don't know anything about science." Hibbert looked at Ron's face with some worry, and found that he was normal, and finally put his mind at ease. Although a genius scientist like Sheldon is precious, it is not worth it to offend a potential big sponsor for this. Ron spread his hands. "Yes, that's right, I have money, so what? If you don't want to please me, why don't you ask the respected President Hibbert where your research funds come from?" "Yes, the cruel fact is that sometimes we have to flatter certain people in order to raise research funds." President Hibbert and Ron bumped fists in the air, assisting Ron to take down Sheldon's first blood. "I don't care, this is too despicable." Sheldon was indignant. "I don't want to be like the champion pig at the agricultural expo in my hometown in Texas, being led around to perform." "No, Sheldon, you got one thing wrong." Ron, who had the upper hands in the verbal confrontation with Sheldon, happily wiped his mouth with a napkin and continued to press on. "The champion pigs at the agricultural expo are generally the best breeding pigs. They are led around not for performances, but for breeding, and you are still a virgin. From this point of view, you are not qualified to compete with it." Leonard and the other three burst into laughter. "Ron, wait for me. I will text you as soon as I think of a rebuttal." "I think you are still not busy enough." Ron raised his head and asked Principal Hibbert with a smile. "Mr. Principal, can I, on my own behalf, request a great scientist like my brother from your school to come to the banquet and explain his research to us?" "Of course." Principal Hibbert readily agreed to Ron's request. As smart as he is, he certainly knows which side he should stand on in this situation. He turned around and leaned over to Sheldon's ear and said in a vicious tone, "Listen, you all have to wear formal clothes to attend this banquet. You have to explain your research to a group of old people. Otherwise, I swear to God, I will blind your eyes with a red-hot spoon, just like the little boy in Slumdog Millionaire." As an Indian, Rajesh certainly has the most say in this kind of story. Oh, you definitely don't want that. Chapter 307 Snow Mountain Incident and Banquet. Then it's confirmed, it's this Saturday night. I guarantee you'll have fun. Principal Hibbert patted Sheldon on the shoulder heavily before leaving, under Sheldon's disgusted gaze. As soon as the principal left, Sheldon immediately took out the disinfectant and sprayed it on the places that had just been touched. To be honest, even so, Ron felt that Principal Hibbert had given him enough face by not expelling him yet. Sheldon is a genius, this is an indisputable fact, but at the same time, he is also a very difficult person to get along with. This is also a fact. Oh my god, fried potato sticks and a party invitation, today is a good day. Rajesh sighed in return for Sheldon's angry glare, but unfortunately, no one took Sheldon's ideas seriously anymore. Of course, when Ron was enjoying his quiet and interesting daily life, there were always some crazy people who were not willing to be ordinary and tried to stir up some trouble, such as now. In an unknown valley in the Argentine Snow Mountain, one of the world's famous ski resorts, in a high-end snow mountain villa, an old man tied to a chair with his hands tied tightly was shivering and looking at the gangsters who surrounded him. These gangsters were all bald, and they didn't even wear hats on this snowy mountain. They looked ruthless. He wanted to ask, "Don't you feel cold?" "I'm very sorry, Professor Arnold, just a little bit more." The gangster began to tear the tape on his mouth. His movements were very slow and gentle. Oh my god, tear quickly. The tape had been torn for almost a minute, and Professor Arnold had begun to get impatient and even lost the most basic respect for the gangsters. But the gangster was still polite, even a little bit ungangster-like. "I received an order not to hurt you." With his mouth free again, Professor Arnold said helplessly, "I think you must have made a mistake. I'm just a university lecturer and I don't have money to give you. This has nothing to do with money. Our boss just wants to talk to you." "Then should I feel relieved? He'll be here soon and he'll explain everything." "Do you want some whiskey?" the gangster said very patiently, and then ordered his men, "Red, bring that bottle of 62-year-old Dalmore whiskey." Behind the professor, a fat gangster stood up to get it. "To be honest, this whiskey is really great. You will definitely get drunk, but at this moment." Dong dong dong, there was a knock on the door outside. But the wind and snow outside were so strong that a thick layer of ice had been coated on the glass windows from outside, and the appearance of the people outside could not be seen clearly. The gangster boss walked towards the door, and halfway through he quietly pulled out his gun and held it behind his back. "It's too cold outside, can you invite me in for a cup of hot cocoa?" When he opened the door, there was a British gentleman with a kind smile outside, and no one else. Just as the boss was relieved and ready to drive him away, he suddenly remembered an urban legend that had been circulating among terrorists for a long time. Legend has it that on the night before several terrorist organizations that have been destroyed are about to be destroyed, there will always be a well-dressed British gentleman knocking on the door, looking harmless. But if you are deceived by his appearance, you are finished, because this British gentleman is not an ordinary person, but the real super-intelligence agency of the British Empire hidden behind the MI6, which has become a laughingstock around the world. Because this organization is too mysterious, the outside world has never known their real name. In the mouths of terrorists, they are called gentlemen, and in the mouths of insiders like Ron, they are collectively called tailor shops. Because according to several people who have had the honor of working with them, their supply accounts seem to be always built in inconspicuous tailor shops in various cities. These tailor shops usually focus on custom-made high-end suits. Ron has several suits custom-made from one of these tailor shops. Thinking of this, the gangster boss felt nervous and wanted to take out his gun immediately to kill the suspicious man in front of him. Anyway, there was ice and snow everywhere. If he threw the man on the snowy mountain, no one might find his body for a week. By the time someone found him, he had already run away to who knows where. But the gentleman outside the door was one step faster than him. He had just taken out his gun and had not yet aimed at the person's body. A Walther P99 pistol with a silencer blocked his pistol, pressed it against his abdomen, and quickly pulled the trigger. Bang bang, two muffled sounds. The gangster boss was instantly hit hard, but this was not over yet. Not only did the gentleman not push him away, but he blocked his huge body in front of him, using his body as a shield, and rushed into the house. Before the gangsters who had reacted could figure out whether to shoot the gentleman hiding behind the boss had already stretched out his arm from behind him, and the fatal bullet instantly made a bloody hole in his forehead. Bang! Another shot hit the gangster's calf, who had just sat up from the sofa. The gangster screamed and fell to the ground. At this time, the last gangster had already pointed the gun at the gentleman. As long as he moved his fingers slightly, he would be sent to see God. However, there was no fear on the gentleman's face. His wrist only slightly shifted to this side, and he pulled the trigger first. Bang! The bullet actually rubbed the gun body of the pistol and shot away the gangster's index finger that was about to pull the trigger. A smug smile flashed across the gentleman's face. This kind of difficult shooting was simply child's play for the training he had undergone. But the terrorists didn't think so. Whether it was the gangster whose index finger was shot off or the gangster whose calf was shot, they all looked as if they had seen a ghost, because such a thing was simply unheard of in their short life experience of less than 30 years. If Ron were here, he would definitely sneer at their fuss. Cut, isn't it just hitting a target the size of a coin at a distance of more than 5 meters? What's the fuss? I can accurately hit the firing pin of a rocket from a distance of 20 meters. What's so surprising about this? The gangster whose index finger was broken screamed and quickly switched the gun to his other hand. Just as he was about to continue shooting at the gentleman, the bullet in that hand was empty, but the gentleman had already approached him, grabbed his hand holding the gun, and pulled his whole body in front of him, and at the same time, he suddenly lifted the toes of his right foot up. "Oh hey!" The tone of the bandit's scream suddenly rose. And in an instant it was higher than that of a soprano, just because his key parts just suffered a key blow. While he was screaming, the gentleman pressed his finger next to the pistol, and while the empty magazine slid down, he quickly took out another magazine from his pocket and inserted it. Bang! Following the first two bandits, a bloody hole appeared on his head and he was killed. At this time, the bandit who had just been burdened with heavy calves drew out a dagger and planned to make a last stand. But his courage was destined to be futile. His companions just now couldn't do anything to their life experience with guns, not to mention the dagger in his hand. As a result, the fact was indeed so. The gentleman didn't even look at him, raised his hand and shot him to see God. "Professor Arnold, I'm here to take you home." The gentleman turned around and showed a smile that he thought was the most charming, but at this time he heard the door in the house open, and his expression immediately became serious. The gangster who was sent to get the wine just now came back with whiskey, but the noise here did not arouse his slightest vigilance. He thought it was just something falling on the ground. The gentleman rolled on the ground, and the knife rolled under the tray of wine he was carrying. He raised his hand, and the bullet shot into his chin and flew out of his forehead. The gentleman stood up, took the whiskey from the corpse of the soft island, and poured himself a full glass. 62-year-old Dalmore whiskey, it tastes really good. The gentleman took a sip calmly. It's a sin to spill a drop of this kind of wine, don't you think? His expression was full of the triumph of a winner, and Professor Arnold had not yet recovered from the shock just now. Everything happened too quickly. Dong dong dong, there was another knock on the door. The gentleman's expression tightened, and he became serious again. He held the wine glass and hid the pistol behind his back, and walked towards the door step by step. But before he reached the door, he heard several crackling sounds behind him. He began to feel that something was wrong. Could there be another gangster in the house that he hadn't killed? Just as he was about to turn around, he felt a chill on his body. A bloody vertical line appeared on his face, extending from the top of his head to his whole body. Then his body split to both sides along this bloody vertical line. It turned out that an unknown weapon had cut his body in half. "Ron, such a big thing happened, do you really not care? Just think about it, a senior agent of a tailor shop was actually split in half by a sharp weapon on the snowy mountains of Argentina. Just think about how explosive this news is." A week passed quickly. Just as Ron changed into a handsome suit and was ready to go to the banquet, the phone rang, and Hobbs's noisy voice kept chattering on the phone. "Those tailors must be going crazy. They only have 12 senior agents. One of them died in Afghanistan before, and now this one died in Argentina for unknown reasons. I wonder if they have the confidence to continue to act like a big shot in front of me." Ron sighed helplessly while adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. "Come on, it's just a senior agent. Just like you said, we all know that there are 12 senior agents in the tailor shop. Even if 2 of them died, don't they still have 10 people? It's far from being seriously injured. I think it's a little early for you to gloat over the misfortune now." Ever since Hobbs started to stand on the same side with the anonymous person, he began to boast of being a senior American agent. Although the United States and the United Kingdom are nominal allies in the intelligence system, unless there is a target that needs to be attacked together, in most cases, the agent organizations of various countries are hostile to each other. The same industry is more fully reflected in this point, so Hobbs's gloating is justified. Yes, they are 2 people short, a full 2 people, as if afraid that Ron didn't hear clearly. Hobbs repeated it again. 1/6 of the staff is reduced at once. That's not how you calculate it. Rhonda straightened his tie and put the phone to his ear. The agents of the tailor shop are not what you think. Although it is stated to the outside world that the 12 senior agents are equal, but among these 12 people there are superiors and subordinates. As far as I know, the 2 senior agents who died recently were both among the inferiors. Ron, who often dealt with the Holmes brothers, obviously knew more about the intelligence of the tailor shop. As long as there are no problems with the 6 senior agents who come on board, they can immediately act as teachers and lead a group of agent trainees for training. Soon they will be able to train a new senior agent to replace the original position, and your intelligence is a bit outdated. The guy who died in Afghanistan before already has a replacement, and now they still have only 1 vacancy. Is that so? Hobbs was shocked by Ron's mastery of information. Why haven't I seen any of this information? But you know it so clearly. I've told you a long time ago that since the end of the Cold War, whether it's the CIA or the FBI, your intelligence agents have been getting worse day by day, even worse than the gossip from the women who often chat in the cafe. I think it's time to bring in a new group of people. Okay, after this matter, I will communicate with Anonymous, and we will continue to talk about the matter of the Snow Mountain. I plan to go to Argentina to take a look. Do you want to come with me? Bon voyage, Ron answered insincerely. Hey, didn't you always get involved in everything before? Why do you seem to have no interest in anything recently? Don't you even want to witness something as interesting as watching the British get humiliated? Let me say it again. Although Britain and the United States are allies, they have been disliking each other privately for a long time. Just like American women, if they are approached by a man with a fluent London accent, most of them will be very happy to chat with him, and even make the London accent one of the sexiest accents among American women. But for American men, there are only 2 words, he. Just a bunch of pretentious people. This situation also applies to the UK. Although the United States has become the world's #1 power, in the eyes of noble British gentlemen, they are still a bunch of country bumpkins. They can't make it in the UK, so they leave their hometown and go to the colonies to make a name for themselves. They are just local rich people who turn their backs on people. In terms of bloodline, our British Empire is more authentic. Well, I might have wanted to go before, but now I don't want to at all. Although he is a senior agent of the lower division, it is undeniable that he is still the most elite talent in the tailor shop. You can imagine what kind of power it is that can let him die in such an unclear way. I don't want to cause trouble for no reason. Chapter 308, The Director of SHIELD at the Banquet. That's not like you, Hobbs sneered at Ron's words. No, that's me. Have a nice trip. After that, Ron hung up the phone and walked out of the room. Sheldon was sitting alone in his living room playing his handheld game console, still wearing his 2-piece suit. T-shirt over long sleeves. Ron frowned. I don't think you look like you're going to party. Sheldon won't waste time in that kind of place. Tell Principal Hibbert that Dr. Cooper thinks the most valuable use of his precious time is to use his unparalleled talent to unveil the veil of nature and witness the true face of God. Witness the true face of God? I guess you wouldn't dare to say that to your mother, but are you really sure you're going to do this tonight? Ron shrugged. If I remember correctly, today is Saturday. Isn't Saturday a laundry day? So you'd rather do the laundry at home than go to the party? Well, don't tell him that. Talk more about unveiling the veil of mystery, Ron pouted, intending to ignore him no more. In the banquet hall, as soon as Ron came in, President Hibbert enthusiastically took him to his side. Welcome Ron, our newest donor to Qualtech. I'll introduce you to a new friend, a tycoon in the world's telecommunications industry and a famous environmentalist, Mr. Valentine. President Hibbert introduced Ron to a black man wearing glasses. He is a famous alumnus of our Qualtech. While he was in school, he had invented a number of telecommunications technologies and established his own company. Now he has been committed to promoting environmental protection. You came at the right time. Mr. Valentine is telling us about his environmental protection concept. Really? But I'm more interested in Mr. Valentine's technology. Ron was not interested in this topic, but his eyes inadvertently glanced at his female secretary. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Ron always felt that this unremarkable female secretary seemed to always exude a dangerous aura. Well, it might be because of Hobbs's phone call just now. He seemed a little suspicious. Without waiting for the female secretary to meet his eyes, he quickly focused his eyes on the black philanthropist. But when he saw the man's face clearly, he was shocked. This was too much like him. This was simply. Ron had believed for more than 20 years since he was born that there was no supernatural power in the world. At most, there was no supernatural power like John Coffey. He was even more certain that there was no company called Stark Industries in the United States. But if Commissioner Nick Fury comes here, it must be no good thing. What is he here for? Fortunately, Ron's years of psychological quality allow him to remain calm no matter how his heart is turbulent. Mr. Valentine, is that right? I wonder what you think of SHIELD. SHIELD. Valentine was stunned by Ron's sudden question, and thought for a while. If you are talking about Marvel Comics, I have a general feeling about this character, but I have more feelings about another character called Thanos. Valentine turned to everyone and continued to sell his ideas. His environmental protection concept is the same as mine. The reason why our world has these problems today is, in the final analysis, that our population is too large. You know me. Money has never been a problem for me. When I leave Caltech, I can retire, find an island to enjoy myself, and let the business run by itself. No one asked me to save the earth. I have to do it myself, lobby politicians, and do research. But after so many years, do you know what I understand? When you get infected with a virus, you will have a fever. This is the human body killing the virus by raising its core temperature. The same is true for the earth. Global warming is the earth having a fever. Humans are the virus. We are the ones who made the earth sick. Valentine was still passionately giving a speech to the people around him, while Ron quietly walked away a little. The famous director Nick Fury did not stay at S.H.I.E.L.D. and ran out to do environmental protection. This made Ron wonder if this was Thanos in disguise. Of course, Ron did not regard him as the real director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He has now come to his senses. Director Nick is blind in one eye, and the director in front of him is at most a resemblance. What kind of director is he without even the most essential eye patch? What's more, Ron has even met the father of Thanos, Stan Lee, so why would he be afraid of a character in his comics? Over there, Principal Hibbert, who had also left his speech, greeted Valentine, who had just come in and was missing one of the 4 scientists. My team of great people is here. Where is Dr. Cooper? My brother said that he is uncovering the mystery of nature and witnessing the true face of God. As his brother, I apologize to you on his behalf. Ron apologized and clinked glasses with Principal Hibbert. The school leaders believe that he has a beautiful heart, but I think that is just a passing cloud. Principal Hibbert shrugged. Actually, I have to apologize to you too. I was planning to take your friends to meet some other donors. Ron made a gesture of please go ahead and stepped aside. Principal Hibbert brought the 3 of them to an old woman. Ms. Lassen, these are 3 great young scholars in our school. Just as Ron was about to join in the fun, his cell phone rang. Ron looked down at the number and frowned slightly, but still found a secluded place to answer the call. Mr. Holmes, I don't think our relationship is good enough to call each other casually, right? Or, it's more like your brother. If it's not something special, I don't want to, but I need to remind you that I helped you clean up the mess you left in Scotland last time. A gentleman should at least have a grateful heart, don't you think? Please you asked me to do that, and asked me to make the matter as big as possible. Isn't that what you said? If you don't remember, I just happened to have a recording of the phone call. Do you want to listen to it? Ron began to deny it. Of course he had the recording, but he and Micklef both understood that Micklef only meant for him to provoke all the Scottish high-level officials, but he didn't mean to incite independence. Now it's good. Because of Ron's impromptu idea, the British government has spent several times more energy to suppress the incited national sentiment, which made Micklef complain bitterly. The original purpose of asking Ron to help was to reduce some unnecessary trouble, but in the end, things got worse. What was even worse was that due to his gentlemanly wording, Ron's explanation actually made sense. But now was not the time to dwell on this issue. Micklef suppressed his anger. There is no need for this. I want to talk about another important matter. Chapter 309 Taylor and Mental Illness. Ron, you are at the sponsor appreciation party at Caltech, right? Ron frowned. Are you monitoring me? No, I think you misunderstood, McCovey explained quickly. We are just monitoring another key person, and you happen to appear near that key person. If possible, can you please assist our people? He is at the table behind you on the left, the British gentleman who is drinking. Ron looked in the direction where McCovey said, and at the long table where the food was placed, an elegant British gentleman was raising his glass in Ron's direction. Ron cursed himself for being careless. He didn't even notice such an obvious tailor. What exactly do you want to do? However, McCovey did not really answer Ron's question. Please allow me to introduce you to our ace agent, who is the most elite senior agent of the tailor shop as you laymen call it, Harry Hart. The British gentleman walked towards Ron and stretched out his hand. I think you must be the famous Mr. Ron Lee Cooper. Nice to meet you. Happy. How happy? Happy. Anyway, very happy. Ron's words made the gentleman, who is always known for his elegance, immediately at a loss, and he could only change the subject to business. I believe Mr. Holmes has told you about the situation on my side. I need some assistance. I believe you have heard about what happened in our tailor shop some time ago, because they were in a public place with many people. Harry also used the nickname. Of course I know. I heard that one of your guys resigned. It's such unfortunate news. Ron took a glass of champagne from the waiter. Thank you. Yes, Harry showed a heavy expression. We suspect his resignation may be related to someone present. Then I guess it must be director Nick Fury. Right. Ron glanced at Valentine. Nick Fury? Is that Valentine's real name? Can you tell me more about this information? Our intelligence officers didn't find it at all. If it weren't for Harry's serious tone, Ron would even think he was joking with him. Okay, don't you British people read Marvel comics? I'm talking about a character in the comics. Ron used his phone to search for a picture of Commissioner Nick Fury in Marvel and showed it to Harry. Look, this is the Commissioner Nick Fury I was talking about. What do you think? Does he look alike? Harry nodded in sudden realization. You know what? He really looks alike. So what did the Commissioner do wrong? Did he really betray the Avengers? Is he planning to have an affair with Thanos? Ron borrowed a comic joke. Although Harry Hart didn't understand the fun of it, fortunately, he had a rigorous logic and immediately understood what Ron meant. No, he is the villain this time. Some time ago, I tracked down a doctor named Arnold. He was the last target that our resigned guy was going to rescue, but in the end, he came back intact, while my guy was turned into two pieces, lying on the iceberg. Ron and Harry walked to the corner of the banquet hall together. Harry found a photo of Dr. Arnold on his mobile phone. When I went to ask him about the situation at that time, he not only said nothing, but his whole head exploded like a ripe watermelon. Oh, this should be a long-range blow to the head from a large-caliber rifle. Ron pushed the phone away with disgust. It's very immoral for you to do this. It's almost summer, but you make it so that I can never look directly at a watermelon again. What should I do, sir? Please pay attention. We are talking about a very serious matter. Harry frowned. Look, this is the image before he died. Like you, I thought he was blown in the head by some weapon from a long distance, but in fact, it was the thing implanted in his neck that caused the explosion. Here, under this scar, Ron finally showed an interested expression. That's interesting. Did someone plant a bomb in his neck? Then I think it must have received a command signal before it exploded. Have you tried to track this signal? Of course, the IP address we tracked was registered by Valentine, so he is now our focus, just based on an IP address? Isn't that too much of a joke? Ron curled his lips. She was not used to contacting serious people like Harry. You know that even hackers will hide or disguise their IP when conducting network attacks. And their disguised targets are generally the registered IPs of major companies. As far as I know, Valentine's company has tens of thousands of employees. It is normal to hack into the computer of one of the employees and then issue instructions through his IP. Yes, we thought so at first, but until we noticed this, I think you should still have an impression, because you just met this person. Harry pulled up another photo. It was none other than the pretty secretary who had been standing next to Valentine when Ron had sensed the danger. Look, there's an identical scar on the back of his neck. If I'm not mistaken, he should have been implanted with the same chip as Dr. Arnold. Once he receives the command, her pretty head will explode into a bloody firework. Harry made a rare joke to keep up with Ron's pace, but Ron didn't appreciate it. Are you telling a cold joke, sir? Believe me, it's not funny. Your sense of humor is as bad as my brother Sheldon's. Ron took the phone, looked at the picture carefully. and compared it with a photo of Professor Arnold. The conclusion he came to was exactly the same as what Harry said. That is, there is definitely some connection between the two people. Ron cursed inwardly. Before coming to the party, Hobbs had invited her to go to the snowy mountains to investigate, and he had already refused once. But he didn't expect that even though he had refused Hobbs, he would still be entangled by another person with the same incident when he came to the party. It was like he was the hero of a heroic movie, and all the good and bad things always happened around him. But fortunately, after experiencing so many events, Ron had already gotten used to it. Okay, what do you want me to do? But no matter what you say, I need to remind you in advance that you and I are not related, and even the favors we originally owed have almost been repaid, so before you make a request, you'd better think about whether I will do what you ask. Chapter 310 Tracker. Harry was a little upset by Ron. As an ace agent, he must be one of the people who actually knew about the Scottish incident. He knew the cause, process and result of the incident, and naturally knew what kind of way Ron's so-called repaying a favor was. If you owe a neighbor a sum of money, and the neighbor says, "There's a hornet's nest in my yard, and you help me poke it and we'll be done," but you find a C4 bomb, not only the tree with the hornet's nest, but also several surrounding trees are blown up, and it almost blew up the house. You call this repaying a favor? Then your way of repaying a favor is quite shady. Harry wanted to complain, but now there were more important things to do, and Ron was the person who was most likely to help him, so he could only suppress the desire to complain. Okay, it's just a simple thing, but can you help me install a tracker on Valentine? This is the latest technology tracker from our tailor shop. Harry handed Ron a tracker that was almost the size of a finger. According to him, although this thing is incredibly small, it has the dual functions of tracking and eavesdropping, with a battery life of 24 hours and a maximum receiving distance of 50 kilometers. Ron's eyes lit up. The IRS didn't have such a useful little gadget. He put the tracker in his pocket without hesitation. Such a good thing should not be wasted on him. My department happens to be in short supply of this type of small toys. How many do you have? Give me a few more to play with. Oh, and there are receivers. Ron looked like he was sharing good things together. Harry was so angry that he felt his blood pressure soar several points again. Is this the best agent in North America? Why does he look like a robber? But soon, his intelligence officer whispered in his earphone, which made him put away his contempt for Ron. Just now, the moment Ron put the tracker into his pocket, his intelligence officer lost the signal of the tracker. No matter what this means, in his opinion, it is enough to have a strong impact on his future, and Ron has been respected by him. Okay, then what are you going to do? I don't know, but there must be a way, Ron said confidently, and began to scan the entire venue. The old lady that Principal Hibbert just introduced to the scientists was teasing the three poor little Atticus. It can be seen that she is very interested in Leonard and probably wants something to happen. But from Leonard's expression, he refused in his heart. Ron sneered at this. You got the advantage and acted cute. In Ron's previous life, if someone said that he had a girlfriend over 60 years old, I don't know how many peers would envy him. Of course, the main reason Ron noticed there was not that he envied that he would soon have a girlfriend over 60 years old, but that he noticed that Harry's target, Valentine, also showed interest in the team of scientists. This is interesting. Among the intelligence you have collected, is there any information related to Mr. Valentine's sexual orientation? Does he have any special tastes? For example, he has a special preference for men with a more sober style. No, how did you think of this? Harry's impression of Ron, which had just improved a little, collapsed immediately. I want to say that if he happens not to have any homosexual hobbies, then his attitude towards scientists is very interesting, and the scientist he is interested in happens to be my friend. As Valentine joined the conversation, the five people gradually split into two small circles. On one side was the flirting bureau of Leonard and the sponsor lady, and on the other side was the science fiction bureau composed of Valentine and Howard Lajesh. Ron vaguely heard a few words being talked about over there. Putting them together, he could probably guess that they were talking about a kind of post-disaster reconstruction of mankind after a large-scale death disaster. This is exactly the topic that scientists and science fiction writers are most passionate about. This may be a point that can be used. No matter how cunning Valentine is, he will never be wary of these simple scientists. This point can definitely be used. Just as Ron was thinking about how to use a few nerd scientists to complete the placement of the tracker without anyone noticing, Sheldon suddenly broke into the banquet hall. Ron's eyes lit up and he knew his chance had come. No, 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 I'm just here to ask for money. I don't want to shake any hands with bacteria. Hibbert, you have to explain it to them. Seeing the hands reaching out to him, Sheldon raised his hands in disgust as if he had touched something dirty, and shouted loudly for Principal Hibbert to help him out. Of course, this move also successfully attracted the attention of everyone in the banquet hall. Sheldon, why are you here? Ron squeezed through Raja and Howard and came to Sheldon. At the same time, he inadvertently stuffed 2 pens into the suit pockets of the 2 scientists. Those 2 pens were of course not ordinary goods. They were special agent tools provided by the IRS, just like the ones Harry had just given him. Although they were not as small as theirs, they looked more concealed in appearance. Everything seemed so natural that no one noticed his abnormality. Everyone's attention was still firmly attracted by Sheldon. It must be said that Sheldon's ability to attract hatred is really amazing. Who is this? Valentine looked at Sheldon and then at Ron. He couldn't figure out the relationship between Ron and the new weirdo. I'm sorry, this scientist with a strange skeleton is my younger brother. I'm very sorry to bother you. I'm sorry. Ron continued to walk forward and walked side by side with Valentine. He patted Mr. Valentine apologetically. At the same time, he secretly threw the Kingsman version tracker that he had just seized from Harry into Mr. Valentine's pocket. The secretary next to Mr. Valentine frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. She just remembered Ron's appearance in her heart. She felt that Ron's behavior just now was very suspicious. Don't tell me this is your way. You used such an obvious excuse and action to install a tracker on someone. You don't think everyone is stupid, do you? Your action is just short of walking up to him and telling him that you are an agent. Although Ron was not Harry's subordinate, he was very angry and couldn't help but scold him. Unfortunately, like Valentine's secretary, he only saw Ron's second move and didn't see his first move. You don't think I'm really that stupid, do you? Ron smiled proudly at Harry, and a sense of superiority in intelligence arose spontaneously. I suggest that if you have time, you should read less chicken soup books about gentleman cultivation, and read some military tactics, and make a feint to the east and attack in the west. Do you understand? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Tracking and Counter-Tracking. Feint to the east and attack in the west? What does that mean? Harry kept thinking about Ron's words until he left the banquet hall. He knew that Ron's last words should be in Chinese, but unfortunately, due to the arrogant tradition of the British Empire, he knew nothing about this language. Ron explained it again in English, but Harry still frowned. But, your action just now was too obvious. Valentine's secretary obviously saw it. Are you sure it will work? Ron did not answer him directly, but turned on the central control in his car. 2 small red dots very close to each other appeared on the screen, and Valentine's voice was also transmitted back synchronously. Harry was surprised and ate his mouth wide. He had not told Ron the FMIP of the tracker yet, so how did he receive the signal? Don't think about it. This is not your tracker, but the one I just put on 2 scientist friends. I guess you're like Valentine's female secretary, and you put all your attention on Valentine, right? Ron said proudly. In that case, why do you need to do this? Ron took the initiative to answer Harry's question before he could finish his question. Of course, it's to make him relax his vigilance. Where's your receiver? Harry took out the receiver from his clothes and handed it to Ron. Just then, a stray dog passed by the car. Ron was quick to open the car door and grabbed the stray dog's neck and lifted it up. The stray dog struggled violently in Ron's hands. What are you doing? Ron's image in Harry's eyes had become unfathomable after the tracker section just now. Harry believed that Ron would never do such a thing just to abuse animals. Ron did not explain, and stuffed the receiver Harry had just given him into the dog's mouth, then lifted the stray dog's neck and shook it twice, then opened its mouth again, and only put the stray dog on the ground when he was sure that the receiver had been swallowed by the stray dog. He kicked it lightly on the butt. Woof! Woof! The wild dog barked at Ron twice fiercely. When he saw Ron raising his foot to kick him, he immediately threw away his revenge plan and ran away in shame along the alley. Come on, old man, This is not the era in 007 movies where agents can just use a few high-tech devices and the enemy will be helpless. Ron turned around and began to explain to Harry. Harry was a little annoyed by Ron's calling him old man, but he didn't say anything. Harry is already 47 years old this year, which is considered an overage agent in the agent industry. If the Kingsman organization was not in a critical period of transition, he should have retired long ago. There is nothing wrong with calling him old man. Today's villains are more cunning than before, and they even understand more high technology than us positive characters. Ron said this, thinking of Sever, who is a typical example. So what do you think they will do after getting the tracker? Of course, they will track the signal source of the tracker in reverse. Do I need to remind you that your opponent this time is not only a mentally ill terrorist, but also a graduate of Caltech and the de facto head of the communications giant Public Bureau? I bet that a small trick like a tracker can be cracked in his hands in 5 minutes at most. Then how can you be so sure that Valentine will definitely invite your two scientist friends back to his place? Harry was furious at Ron's sarcasm, but still a little unconvinced. Of course I can be sure, Ron said confidently, because he seems to have a special liking for young and promising scientists, so he will definitely invite outstanding scientists like my friend and my brother to participate in his so-called big plan. Professor Arnold, whose head was blown off before, is a clear proof. Ron's reason made Harry unable to refute. In fact, after Ron's explanation, he noticed the details that he had ignored before. As he investigated Valentine's power in depth, he found that more and more dignitaries from various countries began to disappear for no reason, so he focused his main energy on this issue, but ignored the occasional disappearance of scientists from various countries. You two have such wonderful views. I sincerely invite you two to come to my house. Are you willing? There, I will prepare a delicious meal for you. How about we continue to talk about the topic just now while eating? At this moment, as if to prove Ron's words, Valentine's invitation came from Ron's receiver. Howard and Rajesh were almost overjoyed and quickly agreed. Ron saw that the two little red dots on the map began to move towards the parking lot. Ron smiled proudly. How is it? Everything is the same as I said, right? Harry was really convinced. Then what should we do? Catch up with them later. No hurry, my tracker happens to be more advanced than yours. As long as they don't leave Los Angeles, I can lock their location. But before that, we still have a good show to watch. Don't miss it. Good show? What good show? Harry wanted to ask, but out of the reserve of a gentleman, he still suppressed his curiosity well. Of course, a more important reason was that he didn't want Ron to be more proud. Just like that, after the two of them were silent in the car for a while, Valentine's motorcade drove past them. Just after the car left, Harry saw the beautiful secretary who had been with Valentine walking back and forth in the parking lot with a device, showing a thoughtful expression from time to time. What is he doing? Harry finally asked. Keep watching, something interesting will happen soon. Ron did not answer, but pointed in the direction of the female secretary. The female secretary suddenly showed an ecstatic expression and ran in one direction at an incredible speed. It was not until she ran past Ron's car that Ron saw that this woman actually had no feet. Instead, she had a pair of special mechanical shoes that were faster than jumping shoes. This woman is really cruel to herself, Ron complained. What do you want me to see? That? Ron's face was happy and pointed out the window. Because they had turned off the lights in the car and did not start the car, and with the special car stickers, the female secretary did not notice anything unusual when she passed by them just now, but they could see the outside clearly from the car. The female secretary ran a few steps quickly, suddenly jumped, got under a car, and then climbed out with a puppy in her hand, confused. The puppy was the wild dog that Ron had just fed the tracker to. Chapter 312. Have you found the tracker? Valentine's question came from the secretary's headset. It seems that I have found it. What do you mean by seem? That is, I found the receiver, but the holder of the receiver turned out to be a dog. We were fooled, the secretary said depressedly. As soon as she finished speaking, a series of bumblebee sports cars suddenly started up in the parking lot and rushed towards her. Bang! The sports car directly knocked the unsuspecting secretary away, and then drove away. Hey! Do you know what you are doing? You are alerting the enemy. Even though Harry has always had a good temper, he couldn't help but yell at Ron. It was really that his collision really surprised him. Is it my turn to alert the enemy? You don't think they just found out that someone is investigating them now? Genius, Ron's tone was indescribably sarcastic, but Harry was silent, because what Ron said was true. If their people hadn't been killed first in the snowy mountains, or if he hadn't accidentally blown off Dr. Arnold's head when he found him last time, Valentine might not be so alert now. Of course, it was too late to say anything now. Moreover, even if he did, he would not say it in front of Ron, an outsider. Ron's receiver continued to work normally. Apart from the scientific topics that Valentine discussed with Howard and Rajesh, Valentine, who as mentioned casually, aroused Harry's great interest in his next move. Let me guess what? You don't want to go to his next destination, do you? Ron spread his hands. He was speechless when he met such a rigid right-wing British agent. Of course, since we already know where his next destination is, why don't we go and see what he is going to do? Harry answered confidently, Southern Forest Church, I know this place, it is a very hidden church in Kentucky. Merlin, help me prepare the plane. Harry had already started to call the plane through the microphone. What else could Ron say about this? Well, I wish you a safe journey. Ron sent Harry to the intersection he designated and drove home. Compared with Harry's next goal, he was more curious about what changed Sheldon's mind. Sheldon, what do you think? Didn't you say you wouldn't attend the thank you dinner? When Ron returned home, Sheldon had been home for a long time. Of course, I didn't want to go. The great Sheldon should waste his time on such meaningless social events. Then how did you change your mind? It was Amy. Sheldon closed his computer and turned around from his chair. She made me understand that us scientists have to raise funds. Think about it, if I didn't come forward in the School of Physics, who would the donors give the money to? Sheldon's answer once again refreshed Ron's understanding of how much influence Amy could have on Sheldon. It can only be said that the power of love is really great, and it can make Sheldon, a rotten tree, bloom. Ron asked with interest, who will it be given to? The School of Geology, Ron, is just a bunch of idiots who only know how to play with stones and mud every day. That's not all. Do you know what's even more terrifying? Ron. Sheldon didn't wait for Ron to answer, and directly replied with a lingering fear in his tone, what's more terrifying than the School of Geology is the School of Humanities. Think about it, the money of those pretentious donors will be wasted on those liars who can only talk big, and it won't even make a sound. It might as well be thrown away. Okay, that's a good reason, but I need to remind you that I'm also from the School of Humanities. Ron immediately lost interest in continuing the conversation with Sheldon. Please remember this next time you are going to mock other subjects. Ron thought that the topic of the thank you dinner ended here, but what he didn't expect was that the next night, when Ron was watching a movie with everyone in Sheldon's apartment, the topic was brought up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, Ron counted the number of people and found that one person was missing. Wait, why are there only 5 people? Where is Leonard? MRS. Lassen called Leonard yesterday morning to have dinner together. She said she wanted to discuss Leonard's research results with him. Tisk Sheldon said disdainfully, I really don't know if his research results need the whole dinner time to discuss. Okay, then have you asked them where to eat? How should I know? Sheldon said innocently, but judging from the topic they discussed, it is very likely to be McDonald's, KFC, or Magic Box fast food. Magic Box fast food is a special American fast food. The characteristic is that there is a circle of roads surrounding the restaurant. After ordering from the ordering port on this side, you can drive the cart to the pickup port on the other side to get the food you just ordered. It is very convenient and fast. Using this kind of fast food to bring paper, Leonard's research is not worth mentioning. It must be said that Sheldon is also a master in insulting people. Okay, forget about him. What movie are we going to watch today? Zombieland, how about it? Ron spread out Sheldon's CD collection and looked at the dazzling array of movies. He didn't know which one to choose for a moment. Any movie, as long as it can make Sheldon shut up. Penny sat on the sofa with popcorn in her arms and complained, which earned Sheldon a big eye roll. At this moment, the door of the apartment opened and Leonard walked in with a depressed look on his face. Howard asked curiously, how was dinner? Excellent, it's simply amazing. I need a drink first. Leonard walked quickly from behind the sofa, not knowing whether he was happy or sad. Ron turned his head and asked, do you have wine in your apartment? How is that possible? We only have potatoes in the refrigerator. Sheldon turned to Leonard, if you want to drink, I can make vodka for you, but it will take 2 weeks to drink. The attentive Penny couldn't help but ask with concern, Leonard, are you okay? I'm not sure. Leonard looked a little tangled. What's wrong, MRS? Lassen said she was considering donating money to us so that we can buy a cryogenic centrifugal pump. Great. In addition to Leonard, the other three little Otacus, including Sheldon, cheered. However, Ron felt that things were not that simple. If it was just a donation of a cryogenic centrifugal pump, Leonard's expression should be the same as the other three, excited. Then what? I guess if he just said he wanted to donate equipment, you wouldn't have such an expression. Then he put his tongue in my mouth. Leonard's expression was a little shameful. Sheldon was puzzled and said, "Why, we can't explain everything to you. Go and see the book we bought for you." The gossip news was interrupted, and Penny glared at Sheldon fiercely. "She likes me." This was Leonard's answer to Sheldon. Wait. Howard finally came to his senses and asked with a lewd look on his face, "Are you saying that the teacher wants to have sex with you so much that he wants to donate millions of dollars to your department?" "I guess so. You are such a lucky duck." Howard shook his head with a tone of envy and regret, and sighed. That tone, even if Sheldon is not worldly wise, he knows that Howard wants to replace Leonard, which touches on his blind spot of knowledge. "Why? I escaped back before she made the next move, but she wants to see me tomorrow night. Do you have any solutions?" Leonard looked at the people on the sofa with a ghostly look for help. However, to his surprise, the first person to respond to him was Sheldon. "Great, what are you going to wear?" "What?" Leonard's head was full of question marks. Sheldon turned to Penny excitedly. "Penny, you are using your body to exchange substances. You are an expert in this area. Teach him." Leonard hurriedly stopped Sheldon before he could go crazy again. No. Wait, I don't want to have sex with her, but we need a cryogenic centrifugal pump. Don't even think about it. I won't do that, please." "Leonard," Sheldon stood up angrily and persuaded him earnestly, "this may be your only chance to contribute to science in your life. If scientists have to use this method to attract sponsorship for their colleges, I guess your President Hibbert will definitely replace you all with pole dancers in nightclubs." Ron stood up and pressed Sheldon's shoulders and pushed him back to the sofa. "In this matter, I suggest you respect Leonard's personal wishes. I repeat, it's impossible," Leonard said, and returned to his room angrily. "It's all your fault." After the takers left, Sheldon pointed the finger at Ron. But this time, Ron was rarely angry. "Come on, Sheldon, you need to use methods to deal with this kind of thing. Since you are here, you must be so resistant. You should think about how to offset his mentality." "Right, Ron, you must have some tricks up your sleeve." "Right." Howard knew what he meant, and approached Ron, grinning obscenely. "Of course, first of all, you need to let Leonard see this photo." Ron showed the photo on his phone to Howard and Rajesh, causing them to gasp. "Oh my God, who is this beauty? She must be a big star, right? How come I have never seen her on TV?" Ron smiled proudly. "No, actually, this is the lady who just had dinner with Leonard, of course when she was young. Needless to say, you also understand that any man will be hungry after seeing this photo, right?" The obscene duo nodded frantically. Sheldon was also attracted and sat next to Ron, holding a notebook in his hand while writing, and asked, "Then what? What else needs to be done?" Ron showed a devilish smile. "Then of course, prepare the things he needs tomorrow in advance, so that he can find them whenever he wants to use them." The next day, close to dinner time, Ron sat on the sofa in Sheldon's apartment in advance, found a good seat in the audience, and prepared to watch the show. "Leonard, Mrs. Lesson's car is waiting for you downstairs." After hanging up the phone, Sheldon turned his head and shouted to the bedroom, "I'll be back in a while. I'll go downstairs to make a final effort for the funds, and then say goodnight to him everywhere." Leonard, who had been waiting for a long time, walked out of the bedroom as if he was going to the execution ground. Ron raised his eyebrows at Sheldon, indicating that it was your turn to appear. For the first time, Sheldon nodded in tacit understanding with Ron, stood up and blocked Leonard. "Wait, I have something to give you." Sheldon handed Leonard a small black leather bag. "What is this?" Leonard asked suspiciously. "I've consulted Ron. Everything you might need tonight is in there, including lubricant, a small umbrella, and a small pill I got from the School of Biomedical Sciences. They say it's the best Viagra." "I'll say it again, I won't have sex with her," Leonard said as he put the small black leather bag on the table. "Wait." Sheldon stuffed the bag back into Leonard's arms and took out a photo from behind. "Maybe this can help you overcome your reluctance. To stimulate your interest, Ron helped me find a photo of Mrs. Lyson when she was 25 years old. Under Ron's command, Sheldon used his trump card and showed Leonard the photo that Ron showed him yesterday. "Look, How sexy her long boots are. They have the wild flavor of a Western cowboy, right? Sheldon made a cowboy riding action, and the last he was the finishing touch? Since Penny's voice was loud, everyone knew what kind of sound Penny would make. Are you crazy? I won't sell my body for a few new devices. Leonard turned around speechlessly, and Sheldon stamped his feet angrily behind him. Ron. Please help me persuade him. Ron, you know about this too. Ron stood up from the sofa lazily. At Sheldon's strong request, he had to do it himself. Leonard, don't worry, although I am Sheldon's brother, I am definitely not here to lobby for him. Compared to Sheldon's impatience, Ron was obviously much calmer, because he knew that if he wanted to pull off a perfect prank, he had to spend enough time and effort to lay the groundwork. That's good. Anyway, no matter what you say today, I will never sell my body. But Sheldon was about to speak, but Ron stopped him with a gesture and continued, I want you to think about a question, Leonard, you say, please think about it carefully. There were so many beautiful women competing with Mrs. Lyson for her rich husband. How did she defeat those competitors? Leonard fell into deep thought, and then suddenly realized, you mean, yes. Seeing that Leonard had figured out the problem, Ron nodded with satisfaction, and continued to seduce in a devilish tone, Mrs. Lyson is a skilled woman. Don't you want to try it? Chapter 313. Finally, Leonard went, and it was not until the next morning that he staggered back to the apartment, looking like a decent woman who had been ravaged by a dozen robbers. He just bumped into Ron, who was going out for a morning run. Ron waved to Leonard, who had worked hard all night. Good morning, slut. What are you talking about, Ron? Come on, I can see it at a glance. Your steps are full of shame. I guess your panties must be crumpled into a ball and stuffed in your little bag, right? Just like every time Penny stays out all night. Ron pointed to the small black leather bag that Sheldon gave him yesterday. It's my fault. I should have asked Sheldon to prepare a new pair of panties for you. What happened? Sheldon poked his head out of the apartment. Nothing, just borrow it. Leonard hurried into the apartment, not wanting to stay outside for a moment, because he was afraid that Penny would also come out of the apartment. Although the two had broken up, he still didn't want Penny to know about this. Are you back just this morning? Sheldon and Ron followed him into the apartment. Yes, that's a good sign, isn't it? Sheldon asked uncertainly. Of course, Ron smiled and nodded. Congratulations, Leonard, I'm proud of you. Leonard, Sheldon clapped his hands excitedly. You are just like an ordinary street prostitute, selling your body in exchange for precious scientific instruments. Leonard roared, half ashamed and half angrily. I say again, I don't do it for money. What? She ran away after having fun? Sheldon was shocked. No, I think Leonard is the one who ran away after having fun. Ron corrected Sheldon's mistake and looked at Leonard with concern. Do you need me to help me get my wages back? Although our IRS does not open this service, for the sake of our friendship, I am willing to make an exception for you. What do you mean? Sheldon looked confused. These are all adult matters. You will understand when you grow up. Specifically, it is like the club Howard often goes to. Seeing that Ron was getting more and more outrageous, Leonard quickly interrupted Ron's divergent thinking. No. It's not like that. She gave me the money at the beginning. Smart. Take the money first and then do the work. I find that you really have the potential to be a gigolo, Leonard. Sheldon nodded and praised. Leonard swore that all the compliments he received from Sheldon from the time he met Sheldon to now were not as many as today. You know, as a person who was raised by his psychologist mother and had an extreme lack of identity in his heart, it is a great thing to be praised by others. Especially this compliment came from Sheldon, who was known for his strictness, but the reason for this compliment was really that Leonard would rather never be praised by Sheldon. What? Leonard wanted to argue, but his physical fatigue swallowed up his idea. After all, it was really a heavy physical job for a teacher paid to stay up late to do hair, and a small body like Leonard couldn't bear it. Forget it. No matter what you say, I'm going to go in and rest for a while. Ron was right. Mrs. Lyson was a very skilled woman. Thinking of this, Leonard showed an intoxicated expression, and his expression became more and more obscene, but before he could be intoxicated for long, Sheldon's next sentence shattered his daydream. This is a good idea, to conserve your energy. There are a lot of rich and hungry old women out there. And I just need a new linear accelerator. Sheldon also laughed intoxicatedly, with an expression exactly the same as Leonard's. I thought he didn't learn anything from his relationship with Penny at the time. It's just that the two people are happy about different things. One is intoxicated by Mrs. Lasson's skills, and the other is intoxicated by the upcoming scientific equipment. Considering Sheldon's specialness, it's hard to say who is more noble. Someone once said that love is the best teacher for human beings. Even people with dull talents can learn from it. Sheldon nodded in agreement. He thought Ron was talking about Leonard, but in fact, Ron was talking about Sheldon himself. Sheldon himself may not feel it, but Ron, as a bystander, has become more and more friendly since Sheldon started dating Amy. Maybe one day, Amy can really turn Sheldon, a cold robot, into a real person. An hour later, Leonard, who had a short rest, set off for school with Sheldon and Ron. As soon as he entered the cafeteria, Leonard was warmly welcomed by Principal Hibbert. "He's here. The most popular person now," Principal Hibbert shouted loudly, walked up to Leonard, and put his arm around his shoulders. He sacrificed his small self to complete his big self and raised $5 million for the School of Physics. "I'm really not doing it for money," Leonard argued loudly, but the applause drowned out her words. Only Principal Hibbert next to him could hear what he said. "It's good to comfort yourself like this, at least it will make you feel better. Believe me, I understand." After saying that, Principal Hibbert left without looking back, probably to find a corner where no one was to recall his sad past, while the scientists from the School of Physics surrounded Leonard like a hero. "Well done, man, that's amazing." For a moment, Leonard really felt like a hero. But this time, Ron did not join in the fun. His attention was attracted by a piece of heavy news on the TV in the cafeteria, especially this heavy news, which was related to her experience last night. "We spend an average of $2,000 per person per year to buy mobile phones and use the internet, so I am very happy to announce that era is over." On the TV screen, Valentine, a great philanthropist and telecommunications tycoon that Ron and Harry had tracked yesterday, was talking to the news media, because from tomorrow, everyone, regardless of gender, age or status, can get a SIM card for free, which is compatible with all mobile phones and computers. "You can try my communication network for free, free phone calls, free internet access, and everyone will enjoy it forever." Valentine's speech won applause from the whole room. Ron estimated that the enthusiasm at the press conference would not be any less than Leonard's current welcome in the physics department cafeteria. However, if it was when this press conference first started, the enthusiasm would definitely beat Leonard by several levels. That's right, this news is no longer news, it's just a replay of old news. In fact, as early as a few days ago, the market has begun to distribute free SIM cards produced by Valentine. Except for Sheldon, the other 3 scientists in the 4-member team also received one. Howard was full of praise for this and donated his old mobile phone to download special movies, working 24 hours a day. In response, Ron sneered, "Free calls, free internet access, and compatible with all mobile phones and computers. Sheldon, what do you think?" "Of course it's a good thing, but I doubt its internet speed. If so many people can use it for free, people like Howard will definitely download XX movies day and night to occupy the network. In fact, the service we get may be worse." Sheldon swallowed the food in his mouth and started to complain, but these were not what Ron wanted to hear. What Ron really thought about was Valentine's motivation for doing this. As a successful businessman, Ron did not believe that Valentine would do a losing business, which meant that the free SIM card plan he just disclosed at the press conference was profitable. But the problem is that as a tax collector who deals with all kinds of business giants all day long and argues with each other without collecting taxes, how can Ron see where its profit growth point is? Based on his experience in his previous life, Ron deeply understands a truth, that is, things that seem to be free are often the most expensive. So is it trying to take advantage of the privacy information of all users? Ron's pupils shrank. Logically speaking, this answer makes perfect sense, and it involves the privacy security of everyone's information, which is enough to attract the attention of the tailor shop to take action against him, which is completely reasonable. But Ron's intuition told him that this matter is definitely not as simple as she looked. Ringing, the sound of the phone interrupted Ron's thoughts. Ron looked at the name of the caller and didn't want to answer it. But just after hanging up the phone rang again and again, and Ron had no choice but to answer the phone. "Why are you calling me at this time, Hobbs, when you're not on the snowy mountain skiing?" "Ron, where are you now?" Hobbs' tone sounded bad. "Something big has happened. Just an hour ago, a large-scale vicious incident occurred at the Southern Forest Church in Kentucky. More than 100 believers in the church were all slaughtered. It was done by a damn British man. I'm sending the photos to your phone now. Take a look. Southern Forest Church? Ron muttered the name. He had heard this name more than once in 24 hours. Sure enough, the photo sent by Hobbs also confirmed his guess. The person in the photo was none other than Harry, who had tracked Valentine with him yesterday. In the photo, Harry held a gun in one hand and hung the other hand by his side. He was standing at the door of the church covered in blood. Behind him were the bones of several believers. Although according to reliable intelligence, the Southern Forest Church was an organization similar to a cult, this level of bloody massacre was still a bit too much. Ron's tone was a bit serious. He stood up and walked to a secluded place outside the cafeteria. Hobbs, are you sure you didn't make any mistakes? Of course not. The guys from the on-site identification department have conducted a preliminary investigation of the scene. All the bullets on the bodies of the people who were shot from the pistol he left at the south scene. Ron, do you know this person? Of course he is a master. He is the agent from the tailor shop you mentioned. I was with him last night. Although it was my first day to know him, my reason told me that this person would definitely not be a bastard who could commit a massacre. That's why I said that your intelligence might be wrong. Ron sighed. The situation was becoming more and more confusing. Ron had no doubt that he was once again involved in a big trouble. Are you sure? These damn British guys are actually making trouble on our territory. What do they want to do? Hobbs shouted indignantly, and Ron quickly moved his phone away. I'm afraid they have their own reasons. How is the British man now? Have they caught him? No, he's too cunning. When our people arrived, he happened to hold Mr. Valentine hostage, so we had to let him go. Ron frowned. This was not what he expected. The news that Micklef informed him at the beginning was that this was an investigation jointly conducted by the British and American intelligence systems, so Ron agreed to help. But when it came to Hobbs, he was completely unaware of the situation in the UK, which did not surprise Ron. As the head of the department, Hobbs could not be unaware of the cooperation information, and years of friendship made Ron understand that Hobbs would not lie to him about such a thing. It seems that there is only one possibility, that is, the intelligence system in the United States has also been infiltrated, so at the same time, Eggsy, who was far away in the British tailor shop, was sitting face to face with an old man codenamed Arthur and drinking. Eggsy was originally a gangster on the street. Because his father saved Harry's life, he was specially summoned to the tailor shop for training, and he even lived in Harry's house. When the news of Harry's death came, he was the most saddened, so he came to Harry's direct superior to ask for an explanation. This is Napoleon brandy from 1815. We only drink it when one of the ace agents dies, the agent supervisor said, pouring a glass for Eggsy. Harry admires you very much? This time, I think, the agent supervisor was still saying some words of remembrance, but Eggsy couldn't hear anything. His attention was all attracted by the scar behind the supervisor's ear that was exactly the same as Valentine's secretary. Eggsy, are you listening? Eggsy was called by the supervisor and came back to his senses. Looking at the supervisor's suspicious eyes, he immediately came up with a plan and pointed to the murals on the wall. I'm looking at those paintings. Are those the former ace agents? Yes, those are the founders of the ace agents. The supervisor looked in the direction he pointed, and Eggsy took advantage of the time when he turned his head to quickly swap the 2 glasses of wine. The supervisor didn't notice anything wrong. Come on, have a drink with me. To Harry, the supervisor raised his glass. To Harry, Eggsy raised his glass and clinked it with him, and they both drank it down. When the supervisor saw the wine in the glass was drunk, his originally tense face finally showed a hint of satisfaction. You know what? Harry was very optimistic about you when he was alive. Maybe I can nominate you to succeed him, as long as you reach a consensus with me on some issues. Chapter 314 Brave young man, go and create a miracle. Do you know what this is? The supervisor took out a fountain pen. Of course I know. This is a special poison used by ace agents. One end is used to poison, and the other end is used to detoxify. If you can't drink the antidote within 5 minutes, you will definitely die. I just felt that the brandy tasted a bit strange. It seems that Harry has told you everything. The supervisor nodded with satisfaction. Valentine bribed you. How did he do it? Eggsy tried to be a ghost before he died. The agent supervisor brought out Eggsy's theory that humans are viruses, and finally concluded, either the virus kills the host, or the host kills all the viruses. No matter which method, it's all over. We must save ourselves, so Valentine decided to solve the population problem himself. Even if we don't act, nature will act. Sometimes only by eliminating lower humans can the survival of higher humans be guaranteed. History will regard the corrugated nails as the person who saved mankind from extinction. In the Bible, this person is called a prophet. The agent supervisor's face showed a trace of abnormal enthusiasm. Eggsy showed a mocking expression on his face. So, who are the superior humans? Will he choose them? His rich friends will survive, and those who he thinks are worth saving will be protected, regardless of whether they agree with his views. The poor or those who he thinks are not worth saving will die. This prophet is really great. These are not the issues you should consider. What you really should consider is how to keep yourself alive. The supervisor ignored the strong mockery in Eggsy's words. For Harry's sake, I invite you to become a member of the new world. Please make a decision now. I'd better go see Harry. Thank you. After saying that, Eggsy raised his eyebrows. He saw that there were 10 seconds left on the alarm clock in the hall. Just 5 minutes. Then goodbye. The supervisor stood up with an unhappy look on his face, and Eggsy counted silently in his heart. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. With a plop, the supervisor fell to the ground. His limbs began to twitch violently. A ball of white foam appeared at the corner of his mouth, and the expression on his face was even more painful. Sorry, the problem with us low-level humans is that we are good at stealing. Ace Agent taught me a lot, but I was born with this kind of trick. Eggsy walked to the side of the supervisor with pride. You dirty bastard. The supervisor finally died unwillingly after uttering the last few words with gritted teeth. After killing the supervisor, Eggsy did not stop. He nimbly cut open the wound behind the supervisor's ear. Inside was a chip for unknown purposes. Eggsy pouted and threw the bloody chip aside in disdain. Compared with the chip, the supervisor's mobile phone was the loot he valued more because it had just received a new text message. The countdown to V-Day starts now. Please go to the safe zone as soon as possible, or go to 66 degrees 58 minutes 30 seconds north latitude and 61 degrees 43 minutes 4 seconds east longitude. The supervisor was like a mission NPC, telling Eggsy in this way where to go next. But just as he was about to leave, footsteps came from outside the door, and Eggsy quickly hid under the table. Soon, a British gentleman with a cane walked in. No need to hide, I already know you are in there, Eggsy, right? Harry often mentioned you to me when he was alive. Who are you? Eggsy poked his head out from behind the table, but still did not relax his vigilance, holding the corner of the chair leg tightly with his hand, and if he found something wrong, he would immediately throw the chair at the other person. You don't have to know my name. If you must give me a name, I think the scepter should be more appropriate. The new British gentleman knocked on the table with his cane. To make a long story short, I am the real head of your department. You can verify my identity with Merlin. I saw everything that happened just now through the monitor. I am glad that I at least have a loyal subordinate. The gentleman pointed his cane at the camera in the corner of the room. Eggsy looked at the emblem on the cane and nodded. He completely let down his guard and got out from behind the table. Harry taught him not only about the various equipment and skills of the agents, but also about the real mastermind of the ace agent. In particular, the emblem on the cane was the emblem of the Holmes family, the superior of the ace agent. Eggsy would never make a mistake on this point. What do you need me to do, sir? Merlin will prepare a plane for you. I need you to leave for the United States right now. Mycroft pointed his cane at the mobile phone left by his supervisor on the table. Do you want me to go to this place? Just me alone? Of course not. Before going to that address, I need you to go to Los Angeles first and take this to find a man named Ron Lee Cooper. Mycroft handed his cane to the bewildered Eggsy. He owes me a favor. When he sees this, he will help you. Then the two of you go to the place mentioned in the message and teach that bastard Valentine a lesson for me. But the countdown is only 24 hours. We may not have enough time. After listening to Mycroft's snagging plan, Eggsy anxiously pointed to the countdown on his mobile phone. The 24-hour countdown started from the time the text message was received, and 5 minutes had passed so far. Don't worry, Mycroft explained calmly. In 23 hours, a missile will directly shoot down one of Valentine's satellites, cut off the transmission chain, and prevent the signal from spreading. It will take him 24 hours to arrange a new line, so you will have enough time. Come on, brave boy, go and create a miracle. Finally, Mycroft did not forget to give Eggsy a boost, but such passionate words, coming from his mouth, felt strange no matter how you looked at it. By the way, don't forget to bring Merlin. If you really can't deal with the garrison over there, you can also try to let Merlin invade Valentine's host and then shut it down, Mycroft said here, and his mouth twitched unnaturally. But I think with that person's personality, this backup plan should not be used. Not used? How could it be not used? Eggsy's little HUD was full of question marks. In his opinion, the best solution for a mission with only 2 people was to sneak into the base and shut down the system. At this time, Merlin's role was more prominent. He really couldn't think of any better way than this. It can only be said that Eggsy is still too naive. Mycroft believes that Ron will definitely teach him a good lesson and tell him what real infiltration is. Chapter 315 Ron's Infiltration. Mr. Ron, I think your method is a little wrong. Eggsy looked at the convoy behind him, always feeling a little uncomfortable, and finally couldn't help but say, this is not the education I received in the Secret Service school. Yesterday at noon, Ron was having lunch when Andy and this young man broke in. As soon as Ron saw Mycroft's cane, he knew that something big must have happened, but he never thought that it was a matter of life and death involving hundreds of millions of people. Valentine, that bastard, actually planned to use the special waves emitted by the free SIM card to make all those who use the card go crazy and kill each other, thereby eliminating the inferior humans, he thought. For this crazy idea, Ron can only say that Marvel's internal role is really too serious now, and the director has begun to steal Thanos' job. Oh? Really? Ron turned his head with interest. What does your textbook infiltration look like? The infiltration of agents should be as quiet as possible, and break into the base at the fastest speed without the other party noticing, and do not alarm anyone during the process. Eggsy recited the definition of infiltration from the book very skillfully. It can be seen that he really studied hard in the secret agent school. Yes, aren't we infiltrating like this now? Eggsy turned around and took a hard look at the huge thing towed by the military truck behind the truck. Finally, he roared in unbearable pain. What kind of infiltration is this? Such a big M777 cannon, unless all Valentine's people are deaf, they can't hear the sound of the cannon. Behind Ron's pickup truck, there was a U.S. military-style M777 howitzer towed by a military truck. Ron chose him for a simple reason, because he only needed 5 people at least to operate it. It was also light, half the weight of the towed 155mm howitzers currently in service in the armies of various countries, but its power remained undiminished, with an initial firing velocity of 827 meters per second. It can fire unassisted ordinary shells with a maximum range of 24.7 kilometers. If rocket-assisted shells are used, the maximum range can exceed 30 kilometers, and the firing rate can be as fast as 5 rounds per minute. You're talking about this? Ron touched his head in sudden realization, his expression somewhat embarrassed. There's no way, you're in a hurry, and although I have a lot of faith in the military, in a hurry, I can only borrow this thing at most, but don't worry, next time if there is a mission of this type, let me know in advance, and I'll borrow an AC-130 to take you to the sky to play. Ron spoke in a brotherly manner, and Eggsy was going crazy. Who told you this? I meant that once this cannon fires, they will immediately discover us. How can we be considered infiltrating? Are you talking about this? Before Ron could speak this time, Hank, who had always been deeply influenced by Ron's education, took the initiative to explain for Ron, with this big guy, plus the 107 rocket launchers we brought, can't we kill them all? As long as all the enemies are dead, no one will discover us. Isn't this a perfect infiltration? Eggsy opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but found that he could not find any reason to refute, so he could only persuade weakly. Are we not exaggerating a bit? Of course not. Ron handed the tablet in his hand to Eggsy in the back row. The location you provided is actually an abandoned military fortress of the U.S. military. The defense of the gate alone is not enough for us to deal with, and I don't want to waste too much time, so I can only use this thing to clear the way. It will be more efficient. Perhaps the British gentlemen who are used to doing everything slowly should learn from the efficiency of us Americans. I think this may be one of the reasons why Mikkelf sent you here. The military truck behind Ron's pickup truck began to leave the convoy and drove to a small hill next to it. It was less than 8 kilometers from there to Valentine's base, which was a very good shooting position. The remaining 6 pickup trucks lined up and continued to drive to the base behind Ron's car. The gate of the base was clearly visible. Gunners are in place and ready to fire at any time. Andy's voice came from Ron's walkie-talkie. Ron handed the M777 howitzer to the senior club. On the one hand, almost all of these old men had been on the front battlefield and were not unfamiliar with artillery. They could play with it after a few tinkerings. On the other hand, Ron always felt that charging into battle should be the job of young people. Of course, if you have to say it, there is a third reason, that is, the elderly generally have some minor hearing problems, so they don't have to worry too much about the impact of the artillery on their ears. Then aim at their gate and fire for me. Boom. Ron's voice had barely fallen when a shell was fired from the barrel of the M777 howitzer, hitting the alloy door outside the Valentine outpost heavily, leaving a huge dent in the door, but it was still hanging precariously on the wall, not completely destroyed. But this was only temporary. Immediately, with the second and third gunshots, the base gate was blasted open, revealing a spacious passage inside. The gunshots stopped, and Ron picked up the intercom and yelled with some dissatisfaction, "Why did it stop? Keep going, shoot 5 more rounds at the base, all with shrapnel." Eggsy's mouth twitched. Isn't this too cruel? He cast a rescuing look at the fat man in the co-pilot's seat, but the fat man had a completely accustomed expression. What the hell? Do all your American agents work like this? He couldn't imagine what it would be like when a grenade hit a terrorist who was about to come out in the enclosed space of the base passage. Isn't this a bit too inhumane? Eggsy asked carefully, and Ron responded domineeringly, humanitarianism? That's just the rhetoric of politicians. Compared to this hypocritical line, I prefer another saying, only dead terrorists are good terrorists. This is really true. I really want to join them. Eggsy's eyes lit up. He felt that he had been elevated and had a bigger vision. This way of infiltration was so cool. In comparison, what kind of stuff did the Secret Service Academy teach? So petty. Eggsy felt that what he had learned in the past year was in vain. However, more exciting things were yet to come. During the 5 bursts of the M777 howitzer, Ron's pickup truck team finally opened the door to the base gate, and the artillery fire just stopped at this time. Ron did not rush to order the team to go in immediately, but picked up the walkie-talkie again. Listen, guys, there are a total of 5 branch passages on the main passage of this base. Now each of your cars is responsible for 1 passage. Shoot all the rockets behind the car into the passage. Do you understand? Chapter 316. The passages in the base had been cleared in the bombardment just now. Only the shrapnel-torn limbs and internal organs were left in the passages, which looked disgusting, but no one cared about them now. Toretto followed Ron's order, swerved, and parked the pickup truck at the entrance of one of the passages. He pressed a button, and the 107mm rocket launcher in the cargo hold behind the pickup truck rose up. The tails of the rockets emitted orange flames. The terrorists in the small passage had just emerged, and before they had time to see the license plate number of the pickup truck outside, they were horrified to see the rockets getting closer and closer in front of their eyes, and then boom. The flames of the explosion instantly filled the narrow space in the passage. The terrorists who had just turned around the corner were engulfed by the raging flames before they could fire a single shot. At the same time, similar situations were repeated in several other small passages. Eggsy was stunned. Isn't this too violent? Wait. Aren't you afraid that this will hurt the hostages? Recently, many celebrities, nobles, scholars and other important people have disappeared in Europe. If the explosion just now hurts them, this is really a problem. Ron pondered for a moment, opened the car door and jumped out of the car, took out a can of spray paint from under the seat, and then sprayed on the wall of the passage in Eggsy's puzzled eyes. After he finished spraying, Eggsy connected the letters Ron wrote and spelled them out, and almost vomited blood and died in the car. I saw that the words Ron sprayed on the wall were connected together, and the meaning was exactly, the murderer is the ace agent. The font is elegant and has a bit of Jianghu flavor. If Ron wrote Chinese characters, it would even give people a feeling of water margin. Of course, in the eyes of Eggsy and other uneducated white people, there's only one word to describe it, that is, cool. But Eggsy also had another feeling, which was a headache. He finally understood what kind of people the difficult Americans were. Hey. These were obviously done by your people. Why are you blaming us ace agents? Ron turned his head and took a few steps towards Eggsy, scaring the fledgling boy back until he retreated to the door. These are all his people, so I won't be killed as a terrorist, will I? Eggsy thought fearfully. Fortunately, after Ron pushed him to the door, he did not take the next step, but raised a finger. First, my name is not Tilo. My name is Ron Lee Cooper. Second, This is your ace agent thinking about your own business. If I didn't owe someone a favor, I wouldn't get involved in this muddy water. Anyway, none of my family members have received their free chips, so do you understand, kid? Ron took a revolver in his hand, played with it back and forth, and looked at Eggsy. The threat in his eyes was self-evident. Now it's time to see your performance. Come on, rookie. Ron slapped the pistol into Eggsy's hand, put his hands behind his back like an old man strolling in the park, and strolled into the corridor, while Eggsy remained in the same place, still in shock. If it weren't for the bloody corpses everywhere in the corridor, Eggsy would even think he was taking a walk. Hank kindly snorted at him. Boy, why don't you hurry up and follow? Eggsy nodded, took out his big backpack from the car, and hurriedly followed. After a round of bombardment, the others, according to Ron's order, were assigned to a group of 2 people to take charge of a passageway, each with a machine gun to block it, not allowing anyone to pass through. Mr. Ron, here, your gun. Eggsy chased after Ron. No, that one is for you, I'll use this one. As he said that, Ron pulled out his usual Smith & Wesson M500 revolver from the holster on the other side. Because he suffered from insufficient power several times before, Ron took out a large caliber pistol at the beginning this time. It shouldn't be impossible for him to not even penetrate the bulletproof vest this time, right? According to the structural map of this military base, Valentine is most likely to be in these 2 places. Ron drew a circle on the map. Now we split into 2 groups. If anyone meets that bastard Valentine, just shoot him. But Eggsy, who got the map from Ron, didn't even move. What if we meet his men before we meet Valentine? Do I need to teach you this? Of course, kill one we see, just the 2 of us. No, to be precise, it's 1 against a group, and see who gets there first. As he said that, Ron kicked Eggsy on the butt and kicked him into another aisle. He continued walking forward along the current route until he walked a long way and heard footsteps coming from the aisle. Then he took out his mobile phone. Peggy, have you got the system ready? Of course Ron couldn't just rush in mindlessly. Before setting off, he had already arranged for Peggy to invade Valentine's system. As long as Valentine wants to drive all the people who use free SIM cards crazy through mobile phone signals, he must connect to the internet, and in the internet world, Peggy is the real queen. Call me dear. Ron was stunned. Peggy, have you prepared the dear system? Peggy was furious. Do you believe that I will blow your head off along with those soldiers? I didn't implant a chip that would make your head explode. Ron muttered softly, and decided not to tease Peggy anymore. Okay, dear Miss Peggy, can you fix that damn system now? Of course, but don't forget the compensation you promised to give me. I'll wait for you in Texas. Peggy, hiding in her pink boudoir, gently tapped the enter key, and the system on Valentine's computer, which had been stagnant, suddenly loaded quickly. Base command room. What's going on? I haven't even touched it yet, and it's already running on its own. Valentine was at a loss, pressing back and forth on the screen, but to no avail. Wait. He's not going to blow up the heads of the low-level people who use the free card, but the heads of the high-level people. No, this can't be the case. Find a way to stop it. Valentine yelled at the secretary next to him, and the secretary kicked the computer screen, and the steel spikes on his foot pierced the computer screen. Valentine was shocked and said, "What are you doing? Didn't you tell me to stop it?" 10, 9, 8 Outside the command room, the celebrities invited by Valentine to the safe zone have begun to count down happily with the sound of the broadcast. 3, 2, 1, 0, bang! The countdown ended, and everyone's cheerful expressions suddenly stopped at this moment, and then their heads expanded violently and uncontrollably until they exploded, and a gorgeous firework burst out from the neck. Chapter 317. Petty theft. This is the special skill of the British ruffian Eggsy, who can steal something from someone randomly at the moment of physical contact. This is the biggest gain for Ron after completing the Valentine mission. This mission was basically declared over after Peggy got Valentine's system. Except for Valentine himself, only the female secretary who had been with him didn't have her head blown off. But he still couldn't escape Eggsy's beating, and was finally cut by the poisoned blade in Eggsy's leather shoes, and died of poisoning. It must be said that this way of death made Ron really complain. Is the gun in your hand a decoration? How much better to kill it with one shot? Ron didn't know since when, a bad trend began to blow in the agent circle, and it was popular to not use any weapons no matter how good they were when facing the final big boss, and to rely on fists and feet to decide the outcome. In this regard, Ron had only one comment, that is, it was simply sick. But what he didn't expect was that in the end, he still won XC's recognition and got the above new skills. However, due to the randomness of the skill effect, he might not get the desired result when using it. For example, just now, in order to test the skill, he patted Rajesh on the shoulder, and then when he reached into his pocket, he found a warm private clothing with a unique body fragrance of Indians. Ron was so scared that he quickly threw the thing into the trash can in the bathroom and rubbed his hands with disinfectant. The Indian looked normal and continued to sit at his seat and order food as if nothing had happened. "Are you still staying with us tonight? Because we welcome you very much," Sheldon invited Howard to stay while looking at the menu. While Ron and the British gentleman were saving the world together, some interesting things happened in the Four Scientists. Howard was wavering between living with Bernadette and continuing to live with his mother and mother. In order not to offend both sides, he could only come to Sheldon's house for one night. Leonard, who just learned that his ex-girlfriend Priya, Rajesh's sister, had returned to Los Angeles, gave up his bedroom and ran to Rajesh's house to squeeze into a bed with his sister. Sheldon was very satisfied with Howard, his new roommate, so he asked this question. "Thank you, but I have my own plans," Howard declined. "You just need to remember that as long as you need the help of a slightly cold third-ranked friend, I am always ready." Ranking friends by intimacy is something that only Sheldon would bring up and put on the table, and Ron was not surprised at all. As soon as Sheldon finished speaking, Leonard and Priya came over hand in hand. "Why are you two holding hands? I clearly forbade you to hold hands." Rajesh stared at the two people holding hands and said. Priya said tactfully, "Rajesh, you know Leonard and I have spent the night together." "Yes, but you just slept in the same bed because I forbade you to do anything else." Rajesh continued to deceive himself, but his sister would not tolerate his bad habits. "Listen, Leonard and I have decided to be together. You have no right to decide who I date." In fact, he really can. Ron was more optimistic about the couple Leonard and Penny, so he didn't have any good feelings towards Priya. According to the Indian Manu Code, there are clear provisions for such issues. If a woman's father is not around, then the responsibility of controlling her basic desires falls on her closest immediate family member. Here, that is Rajesh. "That's so surprising, I was just about to say that." Sheldon looked at Ron strangely, as if he had met his brother for the first time. "I didn't expect you to have such a deep understanding of Indian customs. Please, don't look at me with that expression as if you can read a book." Ron shrugged his shoulders pretending to be relaxed. "Don't forget, I'm a PhD in Chinese language and literature from Harvard, and it's normal to have a little knowledge of other Asian cultures. And I also know that the code stipulates that if someone violates it, she will be reincarnated as a dog in the next life and will be plagued by diseases for the rest of her life. If these are true, considering that the prize is only Leonard, it seems that your bet is a bit too high." Ron's popular science earned him a roll of the eyes from Leonard, but Rajesh responded with a look of gratitude and spoke before Leonard could say anything. "That's it, Priya, we are Indians, we just believe in this stuff, there's nothing we can do about it. I remember the code also said that if you eat beef, you have to live with a cow for 3 months and drink cow urine every day to atone your sins. So how do you plan to explain the beef burger you ate at noon?" Priya, who studied law, fought back quickly. "You know, feudal superstitions are mixed, and you can't believe them all." Rajesh was a little overwhelmed, so he just said, "I mean, you can't be with Leonard." Ron looked at Rajesh's poor performance, sighed and stood up. "I'm going to the bathroom. Leonard, do you want to come with me?" "Ron, are you also going to stand with Rajesh and oppose me and Priya?" Leonard followed Ron to the bathroom and asked immediately. "Also," Ron sighed, "in other words, in addition to me, someone else has advised you? Who is it? Howard or Sheldon?" "Sheldon, he has never liked Priya." "Okay, listen to Leonard." Ron changed to a serious tone. "I will never interfere with my friend's choices, but in this matter, you are not thoughtful enough. I will just say it casually, and I will never say a word about your choice." "Okay." Leonard nodded, but his eyes were full of grievances. "Although you and Priya have the same education level, which gives you a lot to talk about, I would like to remind you that you are two different people from different worlds. Note that I am not just talking about race." Ron did not want to meddle in other people's business, but thinking of Leonard's green hat in the original time and space, he could not help but kindly remind him. Of course, whether Leonard listened or not was none of his business. "I know." Leonard lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking. "No, you don't know, Leonard. Priya is only staying in Los Angeles temporarily for work, right? When the work here is done, she will leave." What are you going to do then? Do you think it is possible for her to give up her job for you and stay with you? Or, are you willing to give up everything here and start a new life in a country that is completely unfamiliar to you? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318, Chicago Theft. Although Leonard promised Ron that he would think about his words, he didn't take it to heart at all in terms of the actual results. Or in the face of beauty, Leonard chose to grasp what he could grasp now. This is probably the so-called one bird in hand is better than two birds in the bush. In order to conform to the aesthetics of his new girlfriend, Leonard even replaced his framed glasses that he had worn for many years with contact lenses, which made him almost the same as a blind man. Even Ron's project was greatly affected by Leonard's eyes. Fortunately, he couldn't hold on after wearing them for only one day, so he took them off himself. Otherwise, even if the relationship was good, Ron would kick him out of his mecha team. God, although I have always doubted your existence, why did you abandon me? Obviously my mother has such a good relationship with you. Ron returned home and just walked to the door. He heard Sheldon screaming in the house. Ron frowned. Sheldon is an atheist. Under normal circumstances, he never mentions God. If he mentions God, it means that something big must have happened, which made him completely lose his mind. Ron pushed open the door, and a police officer in the room handed Sheldon a paper bag and asked him to blow into it. What happened? Ron asked with a frown. I was stripped naked, Ron. There was nothing left for me. Seeing Ron enter the room, Sheldon complained angrily. Are you his roommate? The police officer asked Ron. No, I'm his brother and I live across the apartment. What happened to him? Your brother reported to the police that he was robbed. Ron looked around the apartment and found that everything was arranged as before. He didn't see what was missing, so he asked curiously, but it seems to me that nothing is missing. What did they steal? What did they steal? You should ask what they didn't steal. Sheldon looked up, his voice a little tearful. She stole my enchanted weapons, my evil gladiator armor, my staff of pure energy, and all my gold coins. You called the police just because someone hacked into your World of Warcraft account. Ron rolled his eyes. He was shocked, but thinking that this was Sheldon's usual character, he felt a little accustomed to it. What else can I do? Hero Sheldon, a level 85 blood elf, a hero of the Eastern Kingdom, was stripped naked like a corpse under the scorching sun. Sheldon took a breath angrily and continued to complain. Even the FBI hung up on me. It would be a miracle if the big bald head of the FBI was willing to take care of such a mess. The last time Valentine caused a mess, the case has not been closed yet. How much free time does he have? Keep breathing into the bag. Sheldon put the bag on his mouth, but it still didn't stop him from talking. They also stole my battle Chocabo. No way. They even stole Gran. Yes, Gran, the only bird I love deeply. After saying that, Sheldon exhaled a few more deep breaths into the bag, as if his lungs would explode if he didn't exhale these air. Take care, everyone. The police officer saw that someone had returned and finally didn't have to stay with the psychopath anymore. He was ready to leave, but was stopped by Sheldon when he reached the door. Wait a minute, are you just going to leave it alone, Sheldon? Ron shouted helplessly. I believe the officer is also deeply sorry for your loss. But the jurisdiction of the Pasadena Police Department has not yet expanded to the continent of Azeroth. Then can you at least introduce me to a fired policeman? What? The policeman was confused. It's the kind of policeman who was fired for refusing to follow the old rules and is now committed to using his own cruel way to enforce justice, Sheldon explained. Ron sent the policeman out speechlessly and turned around. I think you have watched too many brain-dead movies. How can there be such people in real life? What kind of world is this? One person can just take away another person's combat Chocabo. This barbaric behavior must be repaid with blood and tooth for tooth. The time to shout loudly has come. Ron, let's release the war demon. Sheldon gave a speech in a very childish way, while Ron was trying to figure out the specific meaning of war demon. This nickname sounds quite impressive. He could make friends with it if he had the chance. However, he didn't know when Sheldon met the gangster. However, an hour later, a hurried knock on the door shattered his fantasy. Hi, Ron, are you the war demon? Ron looked at Howard outside the door speechlessly. If even Howard could be a war demon, then this title was too cheap. Of course, War Demon Howard, at your service at any time, Ron let them in, and with Leonard and Rajesh who had returned earlier, the 4 scientists assembled, each with a laptop, and began to look for hacking jobs. However, unfortunately, although these 4 geniuses have different achievements in their respective fields of expertise, they are average in terms of hacking technology. Not to mention, compared with Peggy, even compared with hackers like Todd Ramsey, the level is not a little bit worse. I said, "How long will it take you? Isn't tonight the World of Warcraft night we agreed on? I originally wanted to go to the next dungeon with you." Ron sat on the sofa and looked at the busy 4 people, and said boredly, "Since they started playing Warcraft together, the game night every Thursday has changed from Halo to World of Warcraft, but it seems that tonight's game should be cancelled." Ron sighed. If he had known this would happen, he should not have come back today. He should have stayed at our Hands restaurant until Caroline and Max got off work, then went home to do what he loved, or rode a motorcycle to the suburbs with Giselle, and then had close contact with nature in some beautiful mountains and wilderness. Anyway, no matter what, it's better than sitting here and watching 4 rookie hackers find Sheldon's lost equipment. You can wait for a while, or you can log in first. We already have some clues. The hacker is probably a troll named Melancholy, but this person is so good at his job that I can't even find any trace of him, Howard answered while typing on the computer without looking up. Ron had no choice but to turn on the computer and log into the game to see if any other guild comrades were ready to go to the dungeon. Take him with him. However, immediately after it clicked into the login interface, the second scream after Sheldon's was heard in the apartment. "Where's it? Where is my equipment?" Ron stared at his robbed account in amazement. The warrior named Weasley was standing naked on his character interface, with only the rags that came with the system to cover his shame on his body. Everything else disappeared. "Ron, was your account stolen too?" Sheldon stretched his head over and said gloatingly. Ron turned around and glared at Sheldon fiercely, because he suddenly remembered that in addition to logging into his game account on his own computer, he had also logged in on Sheldon's computer, and the most recent login was yesterday. In other words, the person who stole Ron's account was the same person who stole Sheldon's account. "Damn bastard," Ron cursed inwardly, and his murderous eyes swept over the 4 scientists one by one. "No matter what method you use, you must find this bastard, FXXK. He stole things and actually stole from the IRS, he simply wants to quit. When I find this guy, I will not only make him spit out all the things he stole, but also tax all the income from his hacking. The heaviest tax." The 4 Odicus were shocked when they heard this. They were originally thinking about what to do if they found the address of the hacker. With the 4 of them who were unarmed, they were not enough to beat him with one hand, but now that Ron's name was added to the list of victims, everything was different. Hey, the troll is coming, I'm going to follow him. What are you going to do? Ron, did you teach him a lesson in the game? Howard asked Ron while controlling the game character to catch up with the troll. Ron joined the team, and naturally Ron was the leader. Of course we have to teach him a lesson, but not in the game, Ron sneered. Hurry up, find a way to get her house address, I'll take you to deal with him. But what if he has a gun? Rajesh worriedly. I know that in many places in the United States it is not illegal to shoot people who break into private homes. What if he thinks we are intruders? Then let's see whose gun is faster. Ron searched and pulled out a gun. Before Rajesh could see Ron's movements clearly, he was hit on the head by Ron's gun handle. Why don't you trick him into talking, brothers? Why don't we play it smarter and try the good police, bad police trick? Leonard tentatively offered his suggestion. No need to go through so much trouble, we can play it more cunningly. Ron shook his head, stood up and patted Rajesh on the shoulder. A wretched guy like this who can only hide behind the computer has almost zero resistance to the opposite sex. Go and seduce him with your account. Rajesh's game account is a female account, a female blood elf, one of the most beautiful characters in the game. Rajesh looked up at a loss, but how to seduce? Wait for me. Ron said hello and left the room. After a while, he came back with a piece of Penny's underwear. His eyes scanned the 4 people again, and finally stopped at Rajesh's C-cup. Rajesh, take off your shirt. Rajesh took off her shirt obediently, and Ron put Penny's underwear on her, calling Howard to help him squeeze out a deep ravine. Click, a sexy photo full of temptation was created. Ron handed the phone to Rajesh, send this photo to him, and then ask him, do you want my original underwear? If you do, tell me your address and I'll mail it to you right away. Less than 5 seconds after the message was sent, Ron immediately got the hacker's real address. The four of them gave Ron a thumbs up. Ron smiled contemptuously. What's this? Back then, I didn't spend a penny. I used 3 female accounts to cheat the gold coins of the little rich guys and raised my big male account to become the main force of the guild. Am I proud? But that was a thing of the last life. Carlsbad, 2711 Seaview Road. This is the Google Map photo of his house. It's only a few hours drive from Pasadena. How about we go together tomorrow? Howard showed the map to Ron. Tomorrow? I can't wait until tomorrow. The Cooper family never waits overnight to take revenge, Ron asked while dialing the phone. Do you mind taking a helicopter with me? Helicopter? The four were stunned. Todd Zarnecki felt that today was definitely his luckiest day of the year. Not only did he use his hacking skills to steal 2 high-level World of Warcraft accounts, judging from the equipment on these 2 accounts, the money from selling them would be enough to cover his expenses for at least half a month. Moreover, he met a hot and bold beauty in the game. Well, it was a bit too much to say that she was a beauty now. After all, he hadn't even seen her yet. He had only seen a partial photo sent by her, but he dared to swear with all the movies in his computer that this was definitely the hottest brown beauty he had ever seen. He didn't know what a brown beauty smelled like, but he would know the answer to this question soon, because his brown beauty was on the way to see him. Todd put on the clothes he thought he looked the most handsome, looked left and right in the mirror, and almost sprayed a whole bottle of perfume on himself, intending to leave a good impression on the other party. If everything went well, he hoped to get more than just a piece of clothing tonight. Dong dong dong, a knock on the door interrupted his endless why, and at the same time, he received a new message on his mobile phone. Honey, I'm here. If you open the door now, I will allow you to take off the things I promised you with your own hands. Heart, blow kiss. Todd was overjoyed and rushed to the door. Baby, I'm here. However, when he opened the door, there was no sexy beauty outside, only a strong man in a suit standing at the door, staring at him with ill intentions. Ron gritted his teeth and asked, Todd Zarnecki, who are you? What did you do to my caramel baby? Todd asked bravely. Caramel baby, Ron's eyes twitched. God knows what Rajesh was thinking, and he actually gave the game such a disgusting name. He pulled Rajesh behind him and said, Here, your caramel baby, now your business is done, it's time to settle our accounts. Do you still remember the game account of Ron Weasley? Todd had a bad feeling and tried to close the door, but the door was already blocked by Ron's foot. A fist was getting bigger and bigger in his eyes. I'll let you hack my account. Chapter 319, Philadelphia Trip and Accident. Under the threat of violence, Ron got back the items on his account with almost no effort, and also emptied Todd's account by physical means. The specific operation process was that Ron put a gun into Todd's mouth, and he immediately said that Ron could have anything he wanted. Although there was a small episode in the middle where Todd's father took out a gun and asked Ron to get out of the house, after Ron shot his gun away, Todd's father immediately became warm and hospitable. Guns are indeed an important tool for human communication, so Ron came to this conclusion. Although you helped me get back the equipment that originally belonged to me, especially my combat Chocobo Gran, I still have to remind you that your behavior violated the Third Amendment of the Constitution regarding resident self-defense. Sheldon, Ron interrupted Sheldon's chattering unhappily. You just need to say thank you. Sheldon stood still, his face flushed red, and after a long time, he squeezed out a word from his teeth. Thank you. What did you say just now? I didn't hear clearly. Say it again. Ron put his hand next to his ear to make a trumpet shape. I said, thank you, Ron. Ron rushed over and hugged Sheldon. While Sheldon was at a loss with a look of disgust on his face, he slapped him heavily on the back twice. Not bad. This is a good brother. I wish you a good dream after that. Without waiting for Sheldon to talk again, Ron went into his apartment first. It was a rare opportunity to make Sheldon so well behaved, so Ron naturally slept better. This relaxed state lasted until he came to Rohan's restaurant. Ron, my nanny passed away. Ron just walked in. Caroline was waiting at the door with a newspaper with an obituary, as if by appointment. Antonia Florentino, 80 years old, passed away peacefully in her sleep. I remember her. I remember that you spent most of your childhood under her care, and I have seen photos of the two of you, Ron recalled, vaguely remembering that Caroline seemed to have told him about the nanny. Caroline threw herself into Ron's arms. Yes, I like her too much. Caroline's mother left the Channing family because of a scandal when she was just born, leaving Caroline behind. Caroline grew up without a mother since she was a child. To her, the nanny is like a mother. It's so sad. I feel the same way about my old neighbor Carla. When I was a child, she didn't take care of me, but she let me into her house to drink cold water. Max pretended to be relaxed to comfort her, but Ron saw a trace of loneliness and envy in her eyes. Of course Ron knew what she envied. Although Max had a mother who was addicted to drugs was no different from having no mother at all. To be honest, Max was much more miserable than Caroline, because Caroline at least had a father who loved her very much and was very rich. But Max only had a mother who was addicted to drugs and was mentally ill every day, and a stepfather who kept changing like a revolving lantern. All in all, Max's growth experience was much more difficult. Ron simply moved Caroline to the side a little, and jokingly opened his other arm. How about it? Do you want me to lend you a shoulder? Max rushed in without any hesitation. Caroline, I heard that your nanny passed away? My sympathy, dear. Wire came out from behind the cash register at some point. Of course, it is possible that he was there all along, but there's nothing better than a black funeral. I still haven't sobered up from the wine I drank at my grandfather's funeral in 1984. Earl, my nanny is white. Earl raised his glass to greet. Is your nanny white? Girl, your family was really rich back then. Earl, did you see Aham just now? I think these two ladies may need to take a leave to attend the funeral, Ron said, patting the two ladies on the back gently. I think I saw him just now, but then again, it could also be a cat. Ron, are you really willing to take us to the funeral? Caroline looked up and said in surprise. Of course, Ron nodded affirmatively. In a sad moment like this, I should definitely be by your side and be your spiritual support, and taste your first Philly beef burger, Max added. At this moment, Lee Han just came out from the kitchen. Caroline asked for leave quickly. Han, we too want to take a leave tomorrow. My nanny passed away. She is like a mother to me, but she is not your mother, and the restaurant has a clear rule that you can only take leave if a family member passes away. Don't be so unkind, Han. Don't forget that I helped you fool your mother last time. God knows, it was my first time to go to that kind of place. Don't you want to give me some compensation? Aren't you afraid that I will accidentally let it slip and let others know that you used a pole dancer to pretend to be your girlfriend to fool your mother? Ron lowered his head and looked at Han with a smile. Han panikedly made a gesture to Ron to keep quiet, looked around, and was relieved after confirming that no one noticed this side. Okay, I agree, you go, because in our national culture, it is very important to remember the elderly. The next day, Ron drove the two ladies to Philadelphia early in the morning. Ron, I believe that my presence at this funeral must be very meaningful to Antonia's family. Do you think that in addition to the eulogy, I can read my childhood diary? I don't think it's appropriate. Who writes a diary? But you will definitely read it, right? Ron saw Caroline's actions in the rearview mirror and said helplessly. On Christmas morning in 1997, Antonia woke me up with a cup of hot cocoa and my favorite mint candy, and then we started to open gifts. On Christmas morning in 1997, I poured cold water on my mother's face, but on New Year's Day, she still didn't move. Max imitated Caroline's tone and read out her extremely miserable childhood as if jokingly. This reminded Ron of his childhood Christmas in Texas. Although the decorated Christmas tree was not as tall as Caroline's, and the gifts were limited by the problem of funds, there were only a few, but every time he thought about it, there was always a warm feeling flowing in his heart. Because every Christmas, all the members of the Cooper family would get together. Even Sheldon, who didn't believe in God, would succumb to this tradition and talk about how the Saturnalia was turned into Christmas by Christians under the Christmas tree. Compared with the little princess who was only accompanied by a nanny and Max who was raised by a drug addict, Ron suddenly felt that he was really very happy. This is the only photo of us that Ron has kept. Caroline took out a photo from her diary. In the photo, a kind-faced woman was holding the young Caroline, and the two were laughing very happily. This was the first time we celebrated Halloween together. I was 4 years old. Look, she dressed me in a cute Halloween costume. I didn't have a Halloween costume. I just messed up my hair and went door to door telling people that I was my mother. Max was still laughing, but Ron felt that it was time to bring the topic out of this sad atmosphere. Hey, don't make me jealous of you anymore, okay? At least when you were kids you could go door to door asking for candy on Halloween, right? Ron pretended to be jealous and said, And I didn't have to follow my brother closely every Halloween like I did to prevent him from getting beaten. Ron's topic really attracted Max's attention. Beaten? Why was he beaten? Because he dressed himself up as Marie Curie. You know, we are in Texas. Can you imagine how many bad kids will tease a boy walking on the street wearing women's clothes? Ha, Max laughed. Then what did you do? So, I had to beat my brother up at home and throw away his women's clothes. Ron recalled the funny things in his childhood, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Ladies, we're here at the church. You get out first. I'll come after I park the car. Just as Ron accompanied Caroline and others to the funeral, Arthur, who was on vacation in Southeast Asia with his girlfriend, ran into trouble. Ron's special operations team is relatively free except when they have missions. Not long ago, Arthur finally proposed to his girlfriend, and Ron waved his hand and gave him a month's engagement leave. However, just as he and his girlfriend Gina were taking a sweet walk on the beach of the island, 3 speedboats suddenly rushed onto the beach, and a group of armed men with rifles surrounded them. Who are you? Arthur protected his girlfriend behind him with one hand, looked at the newcomers vigilantly, and quietly reached for the dagger he carried with him with the other hand. His eyes kept looking back and forth at the vital parts of the newcomers, thinking about how to deal with these people as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, even though countless ideas came to his mind in an instant, he finally found that none of them could guarantee the safety of his girlfriend. I advise you not to act rashly, Mr. Mechanic. We know your strength, so we were all extremely nervous when we came here. The bearded police officer stared at his hands hidden behind his back and said vigilantly, if you are not careful and cause any misunderstanding among my men, I can't guarantee the safety of your girlfriend. I guess you don't intend to do that, do you? Arthur clenched his fists. He knew that the people in front of him were definitely not policemen, but he could only loosen his fists helplessly. Since they called out the name Mechanic, they must be coming for him. I'll ask again, who are you? It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is that Mr. Rowland wants to see you. The policeman pointed at his boat. I suggest you go with us. Don't play any tricks, Charlie. Take his woman to another boat. If you see any situation on our side, kill her immediately. One of his men tried to grab his girlfriend. Arthur was furious. Just as he was about to take action, a cold pipe hit his head immediately. Hurry up and get on the boat. If you don't want anything to happen to your woman. Arthur had no choice but to nod to his girlfriend and get on board. Look, this is Antonia. She looks so beautiful. After signing in, Caroline came to the photo display board. Suddenly, a photo caught her special attention. Military uniform? I didn't know she had been a soldier. No wonder her quilts are always folded so neatly. Wait, don't you know that your nanny was a Navy? Max said in surprise. That's terrible. If I were you, I would say to others, hey, kid, give me all your money, or my nanny will break your neck. Look, these are her relatives, including her sister and nephew. Caroline looked around and finally found something wrong. Wait, I'm not here. No, my photo must be in the coffin, together with other VIPs. If you are a VIP, can we have a drink? Of course. Caroline was about to lead Max and when a man in a black suit came out. Hello ladies, I'm Anthony, Antonia's nephew. It's a sad day, isn't it? Yes. Caroline opened her arms and gave him a hug, but the man's hand quickly moved down her back to her buttocks. Now I don't seem to be so sad. However, his evil hand was immediately grabbed by another hand as strong as an iron clamp, and it was grabbed painfully. Ron? You're here? Who are you? Anthony screamed in pain, but Ron didn't mean to let go. Instead, he added a little more strength and twisted it in the opposite direction. Anthony was so painful that he could only kneel in front of Ron. Anthony, right? I'm giving you a friendly suggestion. Before you plan to make a move on a lady, it's best to check if she has a partner. What do you think of this suggestion? Are you willing to accept it? It hurts. Whatever you say is what it is. I accept it. I accept it all. Anthony was in so much pain that tears came out of his eyes. Caroline patted Ron's arm sympathetically. Let him go. He is Antonia's nephew, and he should be a kind person like Antonia. I think he must be too excited. Anyway, let him go first. Okay. Ron let go, but Anthony, whose wrist was finally freed, showed a trace of cruelty on his face. He reached into his arms with his uninjured hand, suddenly pulled out a dagger and stabbed Ron in the abdomen. You dare to hit me? Go to hell. But how could such a trick end well in front of Ron? Ron didn't even bother to look at the dagger. As the two women exclaimed be careful, he took a step diagonally and the dagger missed. while his other hand was already raised high. Snap! A loud slap hit Anthony's face. Chapter 320. Of course, the noise at the door inevitably attracted the attention of the people in the house. "Who are you?" A woman with a face somewhat similar to the deceased came out of the house, protecting Anthony behind her like a hun protecting her calves. "How dare you fight at my sister's funeral? Why don't you ask what that kid did first?" Ron glared at the angry woman without hesitation. His eyes passed behind him and directly nailed to the face of Anthony, who was already frightened. "For the sake of today's funeral, I will let you go this time. Otherwise I promise that you will prepare at least 2 coffins today." Hey, Caroline hurriedly pulled Max to block between the two of them and pushed Ron back. "Let me take care of these things, okay? I'm really sorry. You must be Antonia's sister, right? You look so much alike." "I'm Caroline." Caroline rushed over and gave the old lady a big hug. Ron glared at Anthony fiercely again, and then retreated to the back. Today was the funeral of Caroline's nanny, and he didn't want to cause trouble. The little thug named Anthony might have had some ideas of making trouble, but after being glared at by Ron, the alliance retreated into the crowd in a hurry. This look was too scary. Which Caroline? The old lady was confused. Caroline Channing. Caroline hugged her again, but the old lady was still confused. Who is Caroline Channing? You are very sad now. I understand, we are all very sad today. Who is this girl? The old woman asked the people next to her helplessly, but unfortunately no one could give him an answer. Looking around, he could only cast his gaze on the black-haired girl behind Caroline. "Max, you? I seem to have seen you somewhere. Are you the daughter of Ricky from Rochester?" "Maybe." Max's eyes rolled. "If I am her daughter, can I get any benefits?" "Hi. Max," Caroline shouted angrily, interrupting Max, who was about to commit fraud, and continued to explain. "When I was a child, Antonia took care of me." "Oh, Antonia was your nanny. It's great that you can come," the old woman suddenly realized, but there was no grade in her tone. Just think about it, no one would give a good face to the former employer who came to pay his respects and beat up his son after his sister's death. However, Caroline did not realize this. She continued to explain tirelessly in order to make Antonia's family understand her importance to her. "She is not only my nanny, she has taken care of me every day for 10 years. Caroline Channing, I'm sorry, but I really don't know who you are, baby, even though you keep forcing me to know. Excuse me, I'm going to smoke a cigarette and see if my son is okay." The old lady took out an envelope and slapped it in Caroline's hand. "My sister's body is in there. Since you are here, you can take a look if you want. However, according to our Italian customs, don't forget to give a gift." After that, the old woman walked away. Caroline looked at Ron for help. "Ron, can you wait here for a while? I'll go in and see Antonia for the last time and then come out." Of course, Ron took the envelope from Caroline's hand, took out a few coins from his pocket and stuffed them in. "Ron, you don't have to do this." "No, I have to." Ron pointed to Max's chest. "When I picked you up, I saw Max put the bag of coins in his clothes. I guess he was going to use the money to buy Philly beef burgers." Max nodded with an expression as if he knew me. Ron continued, "So I think it's better to keep the change for buying food. You know, your envelopes will be put into the coffin." "It's a coffin, not a wishing well." "Okay, I accept your kindness, but you have to let us treat you to lunch at noon." "Okay," Caroline compromised. Of course, Ron took the coin bag from Caroline. Although he had plenty of money, he knew that this would make Caroline feel better. "Go ahead. I know she has always been the most special person to you. Go see her for the last time. I'll go outside to smoke a cigarette and savor the slap I just gave her. Although this year has just begun, I'm sure this is the most satisfying slap I've given her this year." On an island somewhere in Southeast Asia, Arthur, who had just gotten off the boat, took out another mobile phone that he had hidden long ago, found his boss's number, and dialed it. "Hi, Arthur, good afternoon. How was your engagement trip?" Ron, who was smoking outside the church, smiled. "I guess you're not going to ask me to extend your vacation for another month, are you?" My answer is of course yes. "Anyway, there's nothing to do in Los Angeles right now, but I'll deduct your vacation for next year. What do you think?" As a boss, Ron, while having humane management, still did not forget his capitalist nature. But Arthur was not in the mood to joke with Rowan now. "Boss, I'm in trouble. Gina was taken away." "What's going on? Tell me about it." Ron's expression suddenly became serious. "The killer organization that once trained me has now found me again and kidnapped Gina. Asking me to kill 3 people for them, the killer organization you used to belong to? I thought the one we killed last time was it. No, that's just the place where I worked later, but I was an orphan a long time ago and was adopted by another organization. I trained my skills and worked for them. In fact, in the organization we wiped out before, many killers were trained by the organization that trained me before. We were rented to the company, and every income after completing the task would be taken by the old company. After Arthur said this, Ron understood a little bit. It turned out that the killer company he wiped out last time was just a shell company that rented tools from other companies to make money for itself, and they were only responsible for accepting tasks and then issuing them to killers like Arthur. Okay, tell me your location. I have some things to deal with here. I will come to you as soon as I finish it. Are you safe over there now? Do you need me to send you some support first? Arthur felt warm in his heart, but still answered stubbornly, no, I can handle it myself. Chapter 321. Ron, you will never guess who I just met. As soon as Caroline walked out of the church, she jumped on Ron like a happy magpie. I actually met Meg, who was Antonia's comrade in the army. She still remembers my nickname Chicken. It was Antonia who told her. Antonia has been talking about me around her. Caroline was very excited. I originally thought that Antonia didn't love me, so she didn't mention my name in front of her family. Now I know that she only talks about me in front of the person she loves the most. You will never guess what the relationship between her and Antonia is. They are actually lovers. Can you imagine? Serving in the same army, and then loving each other for more than 30 years, military homosexuals. But Caroline found that Ron was not very interested. Wait, Ron, are you a little unhappy? What happened? It's just some work stuff. My men ran into some trouble. Ron didn't intend to say much to the 2 women about Arthur. Can I trouble you with one thing? After we finish eating the Philly beef burgers, can you help me drive the car back? Hey. Don't think of leaving this big trouble to me and then walking away alone. Max joked. Why don't you let me make her into a burger and eat it? Go ahead, but if the burger was made by Caroline, I think Heinz ketchup would be better. Ron patted Max's head. After being together for such a long time, how could he not know that Max always hid his caring words behind jokes? Don't worry, it's just a small trouble. Maybe I don't need to go there. My men can handle it by themselves. You know, everyone under my command, including little Carl, is a capable person. Suddenly, the sound of a helicopter came from the sky. Ron looked up and the helicopter just dropped a rope ladder in front of him. Goodbye, Girls Australia, a 58-story building in the center of Sydney. Arthur, disguised as a cleaner, found an empty house that had been selected long ago. Just after closing the door, he was suddenly patted on the shoulder. Frightened, Arthur immediately reached for the gun on his waist reflexively. The hand that patted him was one step faster than him. Before he touched the gun, it pulled out his gun and put it behind his head. Arthur was terrified. You know, everyone is used to putting the gun in a different position. Unless it is someone who is particularly familiar, it is impossible to be faster than the owner of the gun. Who is this? Fortunately, the other party did not let him guess too long and announced the answer himself. Arthur, you are too slow. If I wanted to kill you, you would be a corpse now. Ron turned around, turned the gun around and handed it to Arthur, and at the same time he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the skill just now stole the gun. If he stole the underwear again like he did last time when he joked with Rajesh, it would be funny. Ron, Arthur asked in surprise, when did you come? About half a day later than you. In fact, when you just entered Australia, you were locked by Sky Eye. It's just that there are too many people in this world who look like you, so I had to spend more time to distinguish you from the faces that look the same. Aren't you in Southeast Asia? Why are you here again, Cook? Arthur pointed upwards. The second person Crane asked me to kill, like the arms dealer I dealt with in Malaysia, must be disguised as an accident. This is my old profession, you know, my nickname is the mechanic. And disguising assassinations as accidents is my specialty. The first target you mentioned is the small arms dealer who died of a drug overdose in prison. Ron rolled his eyes. Well, that order was placed by Yuri, and that guy is in Yuri's way. Even if you didn't do anything, I was going to let you help him. I didn't expect that your original company would take over the task and assign it to you. It's really fate, but you did a great job. The Malaysian police have closed the case and determined it was a drug overdose. However, do you plan to keep working for him for free? You know very well that even if you kill all 3 people, he asked. The other party will not let you go. Ron put on the face of a capitalist. I don't allow my workers to work for others during working hours with my salary. Let me remind you that in your case, I can completely regard you as resigning automatically, and I don't have to pay you a penny in compensation. Arthur almost fainted, and his gratitude to Ron disappeared in an instant. Of course I know, so I plan to find his location after I finish this job and rescue Gina. Fortunately, you are here. Arthur took out a photo and handed it to Ron. This is a photo of Gina. Can you use Sky Eye to help me find her location? What a beauty, Ron exclaimed and put the photo back into his pocket. Of course you can, but there needs to be a camera near her that can capture her, so that we can use Sky Eye to find her location through facial recognition algorithm. But I think, what's your opponent's name? Crane. Yes, Crane. You are not stupid enough to start a live broadcast for your girlfriend and tell the world she is here. Come and grab her. Do you have any way to make her appear in front of the camera? Arthur didn't even think about it, and almost blurted out, this is too easy. After each mission, Crane will give me 5 minutes and call time to confirm Gina's safety. At that time, you can hack his camera and determine his location. Okay, Ron sighed. That is to say, as a boss, I have to help you finish the work first, right? What do you plan to do? Of course, Arthur took out a bracket from the toolkit, opened it up and down, propped it up in the middle of the house, then used the knife to cut the seal on the glass window, took out the whole piece of glass from the inside, and took out a set of ropes and threw them in Ron's hand. Cook is swimming in the swimming pool on the roof now. We have 20 minutes tracked. Now get out from here and crawl along the wall to the bottom of the swimming pool. As long as you drill a small hole under the swimming pool and put this in, the tempered glass swimming pool will crack by itself as if it is naturally overloaded, and then, Cook will be swept by the whirlpool like feces in the toilet, and will be washed down from the bottom of the swimming pool and fall on the ground below. Ron's eyes lit up. You are really a genius in this field. Chapter 322 The Enemy in Los Angeles. After removing the window, Arthur was the first to get out. Ron took out a set of spare ropes and also got out through the window. The floor Arthur chose was the 54th floor. He only needed to climb another 4 floors to reach the top floor of the 58th floor, which was the rooftop pool where the target person was swimming. Although Ron didn't know why these so-called big shots liked to exercise in such a unique place, it didn't stop him from sticking the iron hook into the gap between the windows, and then following Arthur to climb up little by little. This route was the one Arthur had chosen when he was scouting the site. From the bottom to the top, no one was working on these floors, and the two of them walked all the way to the bottom of the swimming pool. Give me the suction cup. Arthur stretched out his hand. You know you don't have to come up with us. Of course I know. I'm just a little curious about the kind of work you do, and I want to experience it in person. After all, it's not easy to witness the work of a famous mechanic. SHH. Arthur put his index finger to his mouth, made a silent gesture, and then pointed upwards. Ron looked over and saw a bodyguard with a gun circling back and forth by the swimming pool. I don't understand, why can't we just kill them all directly, but have to take off our pants and fart like this? After the bodyguard left, Ron asked again. If it's just killing people, it would be too easy. In the past, many of my clients could kill their targets by themselves, but they often couldn't afford the chain reaction caused by killing their targets themselves. Speaking of his professional stuff, Arthur showed a hint of satisfaction on his face. So this time I need to come out and disguise the target's death as an accident to save them from the fate of being retaliated. Now give me that. Arthur drilled a hole under the swimming pool and reached out to Ron again. Ron quickly handed over the special medicine that Arthur had prepared in advance. This is a special chemical reagent. When it comes into contact with tempered glass, it will immediately cause the glass to crack and shatter as if it is overstressed. The most interesting thing is that after this chemical reagent reacts, there is no residue, and even the test cannot detect it. The mechanic is really good. On the rooftop, the target person Cook took off his bathrobe with the help of his men, did a few warm-up exercises on the shore, and plunged into the water with a plop. After just 2 strokes in the water, he found that under him, under the glass base of the swimming pool, a bald man and another handsome man were waving at him with a smile. As a battle-hardened human trafficker, Cook had been assassinated countless times. He certainly didn't think that the 2 people under the swimming pool were greeting him because he had a good figure. He quickly swam up, trying to get his head out of the water to ask his bodyguards for help. But unfortunately Arthur didn't give him this opportunity. Snap, snap. The glass at the bottom of the swimming pool began to gradually extend cracks outward with a small hole that Arthur had just calculated as the center of the circle, and these cracks seemed to multiply more and more. Finally, after being unable to bear the force, they all exploded with a bang, forming a hole at the bottom. The water flowed down the hole and turned sharply downward, from bottom to top, forming a huge vortex in the swimming pool. Everything in the water was swept up by the vortex and rushed to the hole at the bottom. Save Goo-Goo, Cook only had time to pronounce the first part of the word, and the second part was swallowed back by the water in his mouth. The bodyguards who had already noticed something was wrong were in a panic, but no one dared to jump into the water to save Cook, because they all knew that in this situation, jumping into the water was tantamount to giving up one's life, and Cook offered them the highest salary, but it was far from high enough for them to sell their lives. After screaming through 58 floors, Cook fell heavily to the ground like a puddle of mud, his flesh and blood tightly stuck to the ground, like the most stubborn chewing gum, which could not be removed without some effort. Ron found an Arthur and swung back to the room along the rope and spat out the gum in his mouth. "I will never chew gum again." While she was complaining, Arthur had already changed into cleaner's clothes again. "Mission accomplished. We will leave here separately now. You over there keep a close eye on my movements. In about an hour, I will make a video call to Crane, and then you must help me locate Gina's position." Ron made an okay gesture to Arthur, signaling him to rest assured. Billionaire Adrian Cook just fell to his death from the 58th floor because the glass of the swimming pool in his penthouse in Sydney was broken. After a preliminary inspection, the relevant departments believe that this should be an accident on the cruise ship outside the port of Los Angeles, California, the United States. A grim-faced man was watching a piece of heavy news that had just been broadcast. A satisfied smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He patted the bodyguard beside him and said, "Go call Arthur." "Okay." The bodyguard got up and went to the completely enclosed cabin next door. Arthur's fiancée Gina was tied to the middle chair, and a camera was facing her. If you don't look at the rope tied around him, this scene is no different from a live news broadcast. "Gina, are you okay?" As soon as the video was connected, Arthur immediately stared at the screen and asked with concern. Although Crane promised to take good care of his girlfriend for him, Arthur didn't dare to believe what such a person said. "It's okay," Gina had just answered when the camera was immediately reoccupied by the bodyguard who had just untied Gina. "Okay, your woman has seen it. Now I will tell you about the third mission that Crane gave you. His name is Max Adams, a wealthy American arms dealer. He has a mercenary base in California, and he usually stays there." Arthur listened to the mission briefing, constantly asking about various details to delay time, while anxiously staring at another mobile phone behind the computer. He was about to collapse and was about to run out of words. He just hoped that Ron's speed would be a little faster. Dingling, the phone rang. An array of joy flashed across Arthur's face. Ron succeeded. "Okay, I know. You guys wait. I will complete the mission soon, but before that, you must help me take care of Gina." Arthur hung up the video and immediately picked up the phone impatiently. On the phone, the message sent by Ron only had one coordinate. When the coordinates were entered into the map, they were not the location of any city. It was on a large yacht owned by Crane, more than 100 miles away from the port of Los Angeles. 3 days later, not far from this point in the sea, another small yacht was getting closer and closer. Although this small yacht was much smaller than Crane's, it had 6 cabins, enough to meet the needs of a family going out to sea for fishing. But in most cases, it couldn't even hold 6 people. For example, now, there was no one else on the boat except Ron. Arthur's HUD suddenly popped up on the sea in front of Ron, who was fishing at the stern. "Boss, I think it's a mistake for only 2 of us to come here." Just now, Arthur used the submersible propulsion device to take himself to dive under Crane's yacht for reconnaissance, and the result of the reconnaissance was not optimistic. There are at least 20 people on that boat, and all of them are masters who are proficient in various weapons. They are Crane's most capable men. "I think we should retreat to the shore and use my way to rescue Gina. Then I have to remind you again that I am the boss, but there is no but. It's you who insists on not having support. Then there is no way. We can only use the simplest method." Ron waved his hand, signaling Arthur not to say anything more. "Remember, the maintenance cost of this yacht will be deducted from your bonus. Now, let's start." Arthur dived into the sea again with the submersible propulsion device, while Ron threw away the fishing rod, got into the cab and started the boat again. "Boss, at 45 degrees to the port side, A small yacht is approaching us at high speed. Should we warn him? On Crane's yacht, the bodyguard immediately discovered the abnormality of Ron's yacht. Crane frowned. No, I think he should be here for fishing. Don't make trouble. He is now using Arthur's superb assassination skills to kill his third competitor. As long as he successfully clears these 3 people and no one suspects him, then he will successfully merge all the strength of these 3 unlucky guys and become a new giant in the international underground arms trade. Even Yuri, who is the most popular in the United States, is nothing compared to the strength he is about to master. At that time, he can even influence the equipment procurement contract of the U.S. military, and even go a step further to influence the policies in the White House. Whenever Crane thinks of this, he feels that his future is bright. Unfortunately, this good mood cannot last too long. With a loud bang, the boat shook violently. He almost fell off the sofa and quickly grabbed the handrail beside him. Damn it! What's going on outside, boss? The yacht just collided with our boat. What should we do now? A cold look appeared on Crane's face. He put his hand across his neck and made a beheading gesture. Take a few people to take a look. Since someone is blind, let's send him to see God. Anyway, this is the deep sea. There are plenty of sharks in the sea. They can clean up all traces for us. Understood, boss? Sorry, I accidentally fell asleep when I was driving the boat just now. Ron, wearing a pair of slippers on his feet, big shorts, a Hawaiian shirt, and a sun hat, walked out of the cabin, and apologized to her bodyguards who were angry. Your boat is really big, can it hold about 50 people? You are so rich, Ron said with envy, unlike me, who can only afford a small yacht like this that can only accommodate 6 people. How much did you buy this boat? The maintenance cost must be very expensive. The bodyguard on the yacht showed an impatient look on his face. He was annoyed by Ron's chattering, but considering the boss's order not to cause trouble, he could only stare at Ron with his eyes, and the invisible anger seemed to swallow Ron. Fortunately, this situation did not last too long. The boss's personal bodyguard walked out of the cabin. Richard, the personal bodyguard, shouted his name, scratched his neck with his hand, and then pointed at Ron. The impatience on the bodyguard's face immediately turned into joy, and he licked his lips bloodthirstily. Opposite him, the troublemaker, who was still chattering, finally realized that something was wrong. Wait! What are you going to do? Ron screamed in fear, pinching his throat. You are not going to use violence against me, are you? Please don't do this. I am willing to compensate for the loss of your yacht. I have a lot of money. Even if the money is not enough, I can sell my own boat to compensate you. Please, don't hurt me. Ron was acting like a victim, and Arthur, who had already used the underwater propeller to swim to the other side of the yacht, curled his lips and almost laughed out loud. This boss is good in every way, but he loves to act too much. Let you go? You dare to disturb my nap? So simple. You want me to let you go? What valuables do you have on your boat? Hand it over to me? Maybe if you can make me feel good, I can let you go. The bodyguard who lifted the ban on shooting raised his gun and pointed the gun at Ron. The bodyguard said this, but he had no intention of letting Ron go. He just wanted to play a trick on Ron one last time and squeeze out the last bit of surplus value from him. He used to play tricks like this on his assassination targets. The other assassins around him knew his nature well. They laughed and looked at Ron mockingly, intending to see how this poor guy would struggle in the end. Valuable things. Ron lowered his head. The wide brim of his sun hat made it difficult to see the expression on his face, but his tone was indescribably strange. Are you talking about this thing? Ron raised his hand and threw something unknown to the bodyguard. The bodyguard quickly caught it, but when he saw what was in his hand, he immediately panicked. FXXK. It's a grenade. The bodyguard threw the grenade into the sea as if it were a hot potato. Boom. The power of the explosion raised a curtain of water on the sea. MD. How dare you play tricks on me? The bodyguard just climbed up from the boat and immediately looked at the opposite boat for Ron, but there was no sign of Ron on the opposite side. Only 2 round things flew towards him. This time they were grenades. Again, this time Ron didn't throw them at him, and he couldn't catch 2 at a time. In desperation, the bodyguard could only lie down again to avoid the explosion, but this action was exactly what Ron wanted. Chapter 323 Gatlin Bodhisattva. As soon as the 2 grenades touched the deck, they exploded like a cat with its fur flaring up, with a dazzling fire. However, this cat's fur flaring up was a bit fatal, and countless fragments and steel balls gushed out of the shells, turning all living things in the covered area into sieves. This was not the end. When the bodyguards stood up and looked around angrily, ready to find Ron's figure and use rifles to shoot him into a sieve to avenge their dead brothers, they found that Ron had run to a lifeboat covered with a tarpaulin and suddenly lifted it up. The tarpaulin was uncovered, and in addition to the lifeboat, the most eye-catching thing hidden inside was a Gatling multi-barrel machine gun mounted on the boat. Namo Gatling Bodhisattva. All of you go to hell. Trash, Ron laughed wildly, and under Ron's operation, the barrels of the machine gun began to rotate rapidly, and the flames at the muzzle immediately turned red after the immature orange at the beginning, and then to the enchanting blue fire at the end. The machine gun was like a harvester, ruthlessly harvesting the lives of the bodyguards on the deck. What are you afraid of? He's using a machine gun. He can't hit you at all, brothers. Go shoulder to shoulder, a bodyguard shouted to his companions from behind the bunker. Although there is no such expression as go shoulder to shoulder in English, it probably means this when translated into Chinese. There is no way. Who can blame English for not having the broad spirit of Chinese? He said this and did this. The bodyguard who just shouted suddenly stood up while Ron was firing his gun to the other side, aiming his gun in one go. If the hateful look in his eyes could be a bullet, Ron would have been killed by him 10,000 times. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Ron had noticed him long before he made a sound and was ready to move. He just stood up, and Ron suddenly pulled the machine gun towards him. Even with the turbulence of the waves and the low accuracy of the machine gun shooting, the sharpshooter's skill still fired a string of bullets, accurately cutting the lunatic who dared to touch Ron's tiger beard in half. Yes, that's right, it was cut in half. If a 12.7mm caliber machine gun bullet hits any part of the human body, it will definitely kill you. The huge kinetic energy will either make a big hole in the body, or it will be like this. The bodyguard's lower body was still standing on the deck, but his upper body was already lying on the ground, crawling forward with difficulty. Help! Help me! The bodyguard shouted helplessly. In his perception, he just felt a pain in his waist after being shot, and then fell to the ground, and his lower body lost consciousness until he crawled out 2 steps and felt something was wrong. When he looked back, he found that he had left his lower body in place. With a cry of pain, he finally died. And this situation is not an isolated case. Since Ron started to shoot with Gatling guns, plus the 2 killed with grenades before, Ron actually killed 5 people in just about 20 seconds. Don't think it's too little. You know, these are not ordinary people outside. They are all Crane's most elite killers. Outside, each of them will be hired by rich people to sweep away their business competitors or rivals. And now, in front of Ron, they are like chickens without any backhand power, being slaughtered wantonly. That's right. This is definitely not a battle. The bodyguards were defeated before they fought back, and it became a one-sided battle. Of course, any behavior that underestimates this group of elite killers is wrong, and it is tantamount to seeking death. On the top of the cabin of a big yacht, I don't know when, a rifle was quietly stretched out and aimed at Ron, who was having fun killing. It was the confidant bodyguard who had been with Crane. Of course, he has another identity, that is, an elite killer. The cross on the scope finally overlapped with Ron's head. As long as he moved his fingers, he could blow Ron's head off. A cruel smile hung on the face of the elite killer. Go to God, he kissed the cross hanging on his chest. This was his habit every time he killed someone. Although God might not let a murderer who killed countless people go to heaven, what if God happened to be blind that day? This could be considered a small chance for a wicked man? But unfortunately, his finger was not able to be pressed down. Because behind him, another person was holding a silenced pistol against the back of his head. I think it's you who should go to see God. Puff. With a muffled sound, the bullet passed through the elite killer's head and shot out from his forehead. Bah! Arthur spit on the elite killer and kicked him hard. No wonder Arthur hated him so much. He had seen this man's face in the video call with Gina. Last time, Gina took the opportunity to show him the watch and secretly pointed out the hull number of another ship behind him. However, before Arthur could see clearly, Gina was slapped to the ground by this elite killer. Arthur was furious, but he could only rage helplessly. Now that he finally found the opportunity, how could he not get it back? What are the people outside doing? Crane spit on his subordinates' faces in anger. Why can't so many people deal with Arthur alone? He is obviously alone, boss. It seems that the person outside is not Arthur. How is it possible? Besides Arthur, Who else has the courage to drive a broken boat and dare to come to rob people? Who else? Crane never believed that there could be someone else outside except Arthur, the madman. It can only be said that he is a little too derelict in his duty as the boss of the killer company. He doesn't even recognize the famous Ron. Ron, don't know him? It's okay. Just pay the taxes and settle the taxes owed in the past at one time. Isn't it known? No, we can't go on like this. Crane pointed at one of his men and said, You? Yes, I'm talking about you. Go take Arthur's woman with you. We'll move to the other side of the boat now. If you can't win, just turn back. This is not an escape, but a strategic retreat. Crane couldn't help but think proudly of his wisdom. Ron nodded to Arthur standing on the top of the boat. He was certainly not a fool. If Arthur wasn't with him, he wouldn't have output firepower so confidently. This was the strategy they had discussed at the beginning. Ron used his boat to ram Crane's big ship, attracting the attention of the people on the boat. Arthur attacked from behind, which was in line with his position as a killer. The killers who were still hiding behind various shelters were still thinking about how to deal with Ron, not realizing that the danger had come unknowingly. Chapter 324 Your Mom Lied to You. Arthur was high up, and the people below could see everything clearly from this angle. He simply put away his silent pistol, picked up the elite killer's rifle and aimed at the people below. Bang! The sound of the rifle was covered by the machine gun, so almost no one noticed it. Even if someone noticed it, they would think that other companions raised their guns above their heads and shot blindly like African black uncles. But it was not the case. Arthur was on the top of the ship, and every gunshot took away a killer hiding behind the bunker. Until he killed the last person, no one noticed anything wrong. Well, how could a dead person notice anything wrong? Arthur made an okay gesture to Ron on the top of the boat. Ron's gunfire stopped for a while. On the other side of the yacht, Crane, who was in a tactical retreat, suddenly stopped and pricked up his ears alertly. What's going on? The gunfire stopped. Maybe Richard and the others have killed Arthur. Boss, do we still need to go to the lifeboat? This woman is not cooperating. A slap from his subordinate made Gina calm down a little, but his face had been scratched beyond recognition. The woman who could be favored by Arthur was certainly not a good person. He was not like Ron, who was obsessed with looks. Even the women he found were good at fighting. No, we must continue to retreat. Crane, who grew up with Arthur, certainly knew that Arthur would never be killed like this. It was not that he had no confidence in his men, but that he had too much confidence in Arthur. You two, go over and see what's going on. The rest of you continue to go to the lifeboat with me. Crane randomly picked out two unlucky guys. In his heart, these two people were already dead. He never expected these two people to come back alive. He just hoped that they could make Arthur spend a little more time and delay Arthur's arrival. It must be said that from this point of view, he was indeed very smart, but he overlooked one problem, that is, Arthur did not come alone, but with Ron. Just when they turned to the other side where the lifeboats were parked. Behind the lifeboat, a handsome man wearing a sun hat and Hawaiian shirt turned out. Good afternoon, Mr. Crane. Ron smiled and took off his hat to salute. The man in Hawaiian casual clothes made a cowboy salute, which looked particularly funny. Who are you? This abrupt feeling may be because the two men forgot to draw their guns and shoot, and just stared at Ron blankly. It was not until Crane spoke that they hurriedly took out their guns. Ron pointed at his two pistols, as if he was performing a play, treating Crane and his party as the audience. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am Ron Lee Cooper, the captain of the IRS Special Operations Team, and also the superior of the fiancé of the lady next to you. So, can you give me a favor and hand over the lady to me? I promise to give you a decent treatment, such as not throwing your bodies into the sea to feed sharks. No matter how stupid Crane was, he realized at this moment that this man was in the same group with Arthur. What's more, he was not stupid himself. Without waiting for his orders, the two men had already started to pull the trigger. Be careful, Gina just shouted, but Ron had already taken out a revolver from his waist like a magic trick. Bang! 2 shots were fired in succession, but because the 2 shots were too close together, the sound sounded like only 1 shot was fired. But the result was that the index fingers of the 2 killers were broken, and the knuckles that were about to pull the trigger were knocked off, and the pistols fell to the ground with the broken fingers. Crane swore that he had been in the killer industry for so many years, and he had never seen such a fast shooting skill. It was just like a ghost. Are you a human or a ghost? Crane screamed in horror, and behind him, The screams of the two men with broken fingers were more tragic than each other. Because at the same time Ron fired, Gina also moved. First, while everyone's attention was focused on Ron, she kicked the left man in the balls, and then before the kicking foot landed on the ground, the other empty right hand clenched into a fist, from bottom to top, a beautiful uppercut, hammered heavily under the crotch of the right man. Ron cast an admiring look at her. The fiancée Arthur found was simply amazing. Really? How come you don't understand what I'm saying? Ron blew out the non-existent smoke from the muzzle and put the revolver back into the holster. He still smiled brightly, but in Klein's eyes, this was like the devil's call. I've introduced myself and made a friendly request to you, but why did you choose such a violent way to answer me? Ron walked towards Crane. He might have been so scared by this weird shooting technique that he even forgot to retreat. It was not until Ron walked up to him that his knee softened and he knelt on the ground. He felt a warmth in his crotch. He actually peed his pants. What a pity. I thought you were a tough guy, so I prepared 18 kinds of weapons for you. I didn't expect that none of them were useful and you became like this. Ron took out a small bag from his pocket and threw it in front of Clay. Inside were various portable torture instruments he had prepared. Come on, tell me, how much money have you earned in these years? Have you paid your taxes properly? Uncle Ron likes children who pay their taxes obediently the most. Clay's face turned pale, because he had not paid a penny of tax in these years. I have bought some artworks, and my accountant said that these can offset part of the tax. By the way, you can't do this to me. I insist on doing charity every year. Klein's tone was a little timid in the first half of the sentence, but when he spoke the second half, it was as if he had grasped a life-saving straw, and his courage suddenly grew. My mother is a certified public accountant. Since I was a child, before going to bed every day, she would tell me in my ear that as long as I insist on doing charity, I don't have to pay a penny of tax on the money in the charity fund. Just take out a part of the money every year to buy something for the poor. I bought them bread, $50 each. I don't have to pay taxes. You have no reason to arrest me, by the way. And this woman, Klein pushed Gina aside like crazy. I don't know this woman at all. She got on the ship by herself. You can't arrest me for this. Sorry, wrong answer. 1 point deducted. Your mother lied to you. Ron kicked Crane on the knee, knocking him down again, then suddenly pulled one of his arms to the ground, stepped on it, raised the hammer with the other hand, and smashed it hard on his finger. I'm patiently asking you again, have you paid your taxes properly? Ron stroked Crane's hair and brought his face close to his own. Before your answer, let me remind you, including the other hand. You have a total of 9 chances to answer. Chapter 325. Ron is about to go bankrupt. Ron originally thought that a businessman who deals in human life would be tougher than those who do other businesses, but it turned out that Ron was wrong. After the first hammer strike, Ron immediately got the answer he wanted, but just to be safe, Ron struck 2 more times to confirm. Just at this time, Arthur came over. Arthur told Ron that he and Crane grew up together, and this guy has been extremely cunning since he was a child, so it was a bit hasty to confirm only twice. Ron nodded and gladly accepted his subordinate's suggestion to try a few more times. Although the final result was still the same, in the spirit of being cautious, Ron secretly decided in his heart that if he encountered similar things in the future, he must try a few more times. What if there really is a time when he happens to meet a cunning bastard? Ron, what are you thinking about? Leonard's sudden voice interrupted Ron's thinking about how to spend the collected tax money. Since noon, I have seen you restless. Is it because you haven't finished your work? The Metro design work here has been completed. The rest is for Howard to slowly assemble it. If you want it to be faster, you can ask Howard to help you find a few more engineers. Today is the 3rd day since Ron arrived in Los Angeles. After finishing the IRS business, Ron came to the school as usual in the afternoon to check the progress of his Mecha project. No, Ron refused repeatedly. This project is still confidential at present. I don't need too many people to know, and I'm not in a hurry. Just take your time. Hey. Why don't you ask me what I'm thinking? Sheldon felt ignored and said unconvinced, trying to show his presence. You just said that you were thinking about Dr. Green's efforts to make science popular. How is it? Have you come up with a result? That was just now. Now I'm thinking about trains. Hey, are you listening to me? Ron waved his hand in front of Howard. Howard didn't respond when he was talking just now. Sorry, I didn't hear you. I was thinking about something else just now. Good friend Rajesh asked with concern, "What's wrong with you? It's about Bernadette." "No way. I hope everything is well with you." Although this sentence is still in a caring tone, the smile on the Indian's face can't be hidden. Ron and Leonard rolled their eyes at the same time. Yes, Rajesh has a crush on Bernadette, and everyone knows that Bernadette is going to break up, except Sheldon. But even if Sheldon knows, it's no different from not knowing, so it can be ignored. "No matter what, we support you. If you have anything unhappy, just speak freely." Leonard shook Howard's hand across the table. "Yes, whether it's a good thing or a tragedy," Rajesh added. Ron didn't say anything, but he was complaining in his heart. "I think his knowing you is the biggest tragedy in his life." "Brothers, I plan to propose to Bernadette." "What?" Howard would have been fine if he didn't say anything, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he hit a critical blow, shocking his friends beyond words. "Yes, I've always wanted to find a good time to propose, and now I think it's time. How about waiting a little longer?" "Yes, yes, yes, don't be impatient." Unfortunately, the cold water from his friends did not extinguish Howard's enthusiasm. Just at this time, Howard's cell phone rang. "Great. It's my cousin who asked me about matchmaking." Howard pressed the call button. "David. How is the one you found for me?" "What? Only half a carrot?" "No problem, half a carrot will be fine." Her extremely small hands make everything look extra big, and that's one of the reasons why I love her. As Howard spoke, he walked towards a quiet place. Leonard looked at his back and sighed. "Oh my God, he will be very disappointed. I know that if he proposes now, the result will definitely be terrible." When Howard was not around, Rajesh finally couldn't help grinning, his mouth almost reaching behind his ears. "What's that expression on your face?" Ron was startled by Rajesh's weird expression. "From what you said, it seems like a pity, but why do I feel like you are smiling happily?" "Yes, Rajesh, why?" Rajesh was stuck for a long time before organizing his words. In India, smiles have many different meanings, such as happy tears, sad smiles, like mine just now. India is really a stupid place, right? Is it really like that? I have been to India, but why does it seem to be different? Ron was skeptical about this. "Hey, Ron, you are just a tourist. You know, India has many states, and the cultural customs of each state are different. It may just be that the state you went to is not like this." Rajesh was still tirelessly making up his lies. Ron thought about it and simply didn't continue to expose him. Let him fool around like this. Anyway, there will be times when he cries later, and Ron doesn't have time to care about these now. "Boss, this is our financial report for the second quarter of this year. I think you should take a look at it." As soon as Ron returned to the office, Andy immediately handed over the financial report. "I remember I told you that for things like this, you only need to record them and report to the headquarters. You don't need to show them to me. I am completely confident in your work." Ron put the report on the table impatiently. He didn't want to touch it at all. "But I think you should still take a look." Andy was not someone who gave up easily. He directly flipped open the report on Ron's desk. "Because if you don't do something, our financial situation will continue as it is now. At the end of the next quarter at the latest, we will be insolvent, and you will become the first special operations team captain in the history of the IRS to lose his job due to bankruptcy." "How is that possible?" Speaking of money, Ron sat up from his boss chair. "What happened? Did the tax payment from Fried Chicken Tree not transfer on time, or did the bankers in Los Angeles come up with other tax avoidance ideas? Tell me, I will go and have a good chat with them. I always like to convince people with reason." As he said that, Ron took out a hammer from the drawer. Obviously, the reason he was talking about should be the law of physics. Andy shook his head. "Neither. Their taxes have been paid on time recently, but our recent expenses are a little bit higher." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.